After arguing with his boss and getting fired on the same day he's dumped by his longtime girlfriend, the protagonist sees his life completely fall apart. With no real options left, he decides to work as a ride-hailing driver. But everything changes when he gets connected to a very unusual system, a system that rewards negative reviews. That's right, the worse his ratings from passengers, the greater the rewards he receives. Money, absurd benefits, and unbelievable opportunities start appearing simply because he does the opposite of what a normal driver would do. Now, instead of trying to please customers, he begins playing a completely inverted game, exploiting this strange system to rise in life faster than ever. And without further delay, let's jump straight into the full video and see what happens next. Blue Star, Dragon Kingdom, Haicheng, Shang Financial Tower. A young man was shouting at Zhang Jingyun, saying that he had planned that entire proposal by himself, so on what grounds was he denying him the credit and his commission? Jingyun kept mocking him, saying that this was because everything the young man had done belonged to the company, and the company listened to everything he said. The young man grew irritated, saying that apparently they were being unreasonable again, and if that was the case, staying any longer at that blood-sucking company would only make him an even bigger idiot. He walked out of Lex Luthor's office and went straight to his desk to pack up his things. His co-workers asked him not to act so impulsively because he knew what kind of person President Jingyun was. Because if he lost that job, then what would happen to the protagonist's girlfriend's paralyzed father? Yang Chen looked at the photo of himself with his girlfriend and, determined, stood up, saying that his parents had left him an apartment and a car when they passed away, and now he was planning to drive for a ride-hailing service to recover. That way, he would be able to pay the bills. He went to the parking lot, but while he was walking, he received a few messages. His girlfriend was breaking up with him, saying that he could not provide the life she deserved, and even if he worked very hard, she could barely wait for him. Because of that, she wanted to end things before new problems arose. So all they needed to do was let each other move on with their lives. Yang Chen did not expect that because there had been no signs that this could happen. He tried to call her, but the phone was already turned off. He leaned against the car, completely shaken mentally. He shouted, asking what kind of day that was because it felt like a damn streak of bad luck. However, he decided to let all of that go. He got into his car saying that those things did not matter because no matter how hard life might be, it still had to go on. Because he could not miss his pre-booked candlelight dinner, a celebration for having lost both his girlfriend and his job on the same day. As soon as he opened the app on his phone, the app told him that there was a ride available within 1 kilometer. He accepted the request and the system calculated where he needed to go. Quickly, the protagonist started driving his car to pick up his customer. A short time later, the protagonist arrived where the app had told him to go. However, he did not see anyone. He decided to call the customer, saying that he was the ride-hailing driver, and told her that he was already at the agreed pickup point, but he was not seeing her. The girl sounded surprised and said that she had just started putting foundation on her face, so she would still need at least 20 more minutes. The protagonist became a little irritated and asked why she had ordered the car so early, asking if she could not have placed the order after finishing her makeup and coming downstairs. The woman remained firm, saying that she was almost done, and said that she needed another half hour because that would already be enough time. And if he dared to cancel the ride, she would definitely report him. Yang Chen said he did not care at all and told her to go ahead and report him, because she was the one wasting time and he did not care about that. A short time later, she actually filed a complaint saying that she had never seen a driver as unprofessional as him, and asking what kind of behavior it was for a driver to lecture a passenger. And then she canceled. Suddenly, something strange began to happen and a woman appeared right in front of him. The protagonist was startled, asking what was going on there. The woman said that the host connection criteria had been detected. Preview reward system requesting binding. She asked the protagonist whether he wished to proceed. Yang Chen was completely confused, asking what was really happening inside that car because he had heard of making money through good reviews, but he had never seen anyone gain something through bad reviews. The system woman called the protagonist master and explained that as soon as the system was bound, he would receive system rewards every time he got a negative review or complaint. The reward content was random and could be money, real estate, luxury cars, or special abilities. Yang Chen became so excited about that, saying that it was basically a cheat code, so he should not avoid binding that thing to himself. The woman walked up to the protagonist and kissed him, saying that the host's binding command had been received and the system binding was underway. A short time later, she emphasized that the negative review system had been successfully installed in the host. She told him to resume his route. In addition, he needed to target eccentric or unpleasant passengers in order to receive negative reviews. However, he still needed to maintain good service for other passengers so that he could keep his driver rating and priority for ride requests. And since he had just received a complaint, the system was granting him a grand prize, 28% of the shares of the Quandao Hotel Group, making him the second largest shareholder. Now he needed to go immediately to the Quandao Hotel, where someone would deliver the share transfer agreement to him. Yang Chen could not believe it. saying that that system was a truly great gift right after reincarnation. The system warned him that there was a new request, and the pickup point was 2 kilometers away, and the destination was the Kwandao Hotel. The protagonist thought that this request was practically tailor-made for him, because he could go to the hotel to eat and collect the share transfer documents at the same time. Quickly, he went to the pickup point and saw a woman standing there. He greeted her and asked whether she was the passenger ending in 8043. The woman said yes and got into the car. While they were on the road, the woman asked why the protagonist was peeking at her through the mirror. Yang Chen asked whether she did not know how to drive because he was not looking at her, but rather observing the road conditions behind them. But the woman kept acting defensively and asked why he was attacking her driving skills just because she had asked a question. She emphasized that, in fact, he was the bad driver since he was going very slowly, but the protagonist decided to show that he was the real Max Verstappen. The woman became frightened, asking what he was doing and told him to calm down. Seeing that he was not slowing down, she screamed, saying that she was wrong and asked him to stop. She begged, saying that she really should not have said that and asked for help, but the protagonist kept accelerating and she screamed at him to slow down because she was very scared. Yang Chen asked who the big brother there was because if he had wanted to, he could have ended both of their lives, and that way she would learn to value her life a little more. And since he had taken very good care of her, she should call him Daddy. Completely terrified, she called him Daddy, and the protagonist said that she was a good girl and stepped on the brake. He said that they had just arrived at the hotel and asked her to get out. The woman got out of the car crying and trembling, saying that that was intimidation and that she would leave a negative review and file a complaint right there. She could even call the police over reckless driving like that. The system appeared before him, congratulating him for receiving a negative review through pure skill. Because of that, the system would reward him with ownership of the Haicheng Finance Tower, and he needed to go there, to the management office tomorrow to collect the transfer deeds and property documents. He felt happy, thinking that this was the same building where he had worked, and this was a perfect opportunity for him to settle old debts and a few scores left behind. He entered the hotel, and the woman who had been in the car with him felt annoyed, asking how he dared to follow her, acting as if he were above the law. But the protagonist told her not to flatter herself, because he had already reserved a table. He showed his phone and the receptionist called him Mr. Yang, saying that the place at table 8 was reserved and that the staff would escort him there. In addition, she handed him a document, saying that the manager had asked her to deliver it to the protagonist and that he needed to keep it safe. With everything settled, she said that she would show him to the table. The woman from earlier kept watching and thought that even if she had misunderstood that situation, she would not forgive him. A short time later at the table, a woman handed him a cup of tea, asking him to wait a little because the meal would be ready soon. The same woman walked past the protagonist and greeted a man, asking whether he was Zhang Long. The man said that he was and said that she must be Wang Jiayi, whom President Wang had introduced, and asked her to sit down. The protagonist merely watched, thinking that apparently they were there for a blind date. But suddenly, a man appeared with 2 women, and the protagonist laughed, saying that it was a huge coincidence. The blonde woman told the man that she had just seen a friend and would stop by to say hello. She walked over to Yang Chen and said that he was crossing the line, asking whether they could not simply end things like civilized people. So why was he trying to do that if he was there only to deliberately cause trouble? Yang Chen says he is already very bored because he has no interest in gold diggers like them, women in their 20s spending all day with men in their 40s or 50s, and he is ashamed that he ever felt anything for her and of thinking about what her parents are going through. She gets irritated. The man who is with her calls her Xinyi and asks what is going on. Xinyi feels embarrassed and tries to smooth things over, saying that it is nothing and telling him that they can go ahead and sit down because she will be there shortly afterward. But the man says that it does not look like nothing because apparently they are having a very unpleasant conversation. The man asks the protagonist who he is, and Yang Chen says that he is Zhao Feifei's ex-boyfriend and that she had just dumped him that very same day. He then asks when the two of them got together because apparently he might be a homewrecker. The man asks Feifei if that is true, and she says no because she broke up with him a long time ago, but he keeps refusing to accept it. And she tried to break up with him again that day, but she never expected him to follow her there to frame her. And that is outright intimidation. Because of her fake crying, the man hugs her, saying that everything is fine and that it is not her fault and that she does not need to get angry over someone like that, because he will deal with that boy right away. The man looks at the protagonist and says that the way he has been harassing his girlfriend is very annoying. He asks the waitress to call manager Chung because he has something to say to him. Feifei tells the protagonist that he should leave, otherwise he will go through some hard times. Jiayi, who had been watching all of that, starts laughing, thinking that that boy is very strange, and now she wants to see how he plans to clean up that whole mess. Long asks Jiayi if she knows that man, and she says no, because he was only rude to her, and also used his bad mood as an excuse to threaten to get her into an accident and forced her to call him daddy before letting her go. And she had just arrived there, in his car, and gave him a 1-star rating the moment she got out. Long stands up saying that this is outrageous and that boy has gone way too far, and because of that he is going to get revenge right away. Jiayi asks him not to be so impulsive, but Long walks over there and tells the protagonist that Miss Wang had just arrived there in his car as a passenger and asks if he intimidated her. Yang Chen says that he did exactly that and asks whether he has a problem with it and who he is. Long introduces himself, saying that he is the blind date of that young lady and orders the protagonist to apologize to her right away and call him grandpa. And maybe he will spare the protagonist's life. Otherwise, he will have him thrown out of there immediately. Yang Chen remains seated, calm, saying that boy has a very big mouth and asking whose son he is. Long says that his father is the president of Tianmu Invest and that they are about to invest in the hotel. Therefore, he has enough power to make the hotel group put the protagonist's name on the blacklist and they would not dare say anything against it. Yang Chen says that if that is the case, then he would like to see how powerful those two can be in forcing him to leave that place. Suddenly, another person starts arriving and asks the manager whether he is there for dinner, and asks why he did not say anything. He also sees young master Zhang and points out that this is a lucky day to have both of them there at the same time, because they have brought a lot of glory to the hotel. The manager says that his girlfriend's birthday is today, and they decided to have dinner there, but her ex-boyfriend is being a complete leech and will not leave her alone, so they cannot eat in peace. Exactly for that reason, he would like them to throw that boy out. Long says that he is also there for a blind date and that his father was the intermediary for that arrangement, and he also agrees with the manager, ordering them to throw that boy out. The blonde young man asks who is being so arrogant as to offend both of them, because he will definitely deal with it. The two of them point at the protagonist, and the blonde man cannot believe what he is seeing, because that is the new shareholder that the board of directors has just officially announced. The blonde young man asks security to remove manager Li and Long from there immediately and never let them enter the hotel again. The manager asks Chung if he heard that right because he is the supplier of vegetables and food for the hotel. Long also becomes irritated and tells manager Chung that he is going blind, asking if he no longer wants his family's investment. Chung walks up to the protagonist and says that he would like to formally introduce him. That is Mr. Chen, the newly appointed second largest shareholder of the hotel group. Yang Chen says that Chung is a very sensible man. The three of them are stunned, asking if he really is the second largest shareholder. Jiayi keeps looking at the protagonist, asking herself how the second largest shareholder of the Quandao Hotel could be driving a ride-hailing car, and whether he could really be a rich kid experiencing ordinary life. And now it is explained why he had been so arrogant while speaking. Yang Chen tells manager Li that they no longer need his supply and also no longer want the Zhang family's investment. Fei Fei is crying, asking how much water must have leaked from her brain for her to break up with Yang Chen. She starts wondering what she should do, because it is too late to beg for his forgiveness. She throws her pride aside and drops to her knees on the floor, telling the protagonist that she was wrong and that she only let that guy hold her hand and nothing happened between them, because both her body and her soul still completely belong to Yang Chen. Xinyi turns against her friend and tells the protagonist that she is a vain, gold-digging woman and that she is worthless, asking him to look at her instead because she is completely pure. Yang Chen thinks that those two women are starting to turn on each other. Manager Li walks up to the protagonist and says that honestly, he did not know that that girl was his girlfriend, because if he had known, not even if the heavens came down would he have dared compete with someone as prosperous as the protagonist. Yang Chen bangs the teacup on the table and asks the manager whether he's really going to keep taking so long to throw that trash out of there. Chung apologizes to his boss and calls security, ordering all of them to get out. Chung tells the protagonist that that boy is the son of the boss of Tianmu Invest. Yang Chen asks what kind of investment that is, pointing out that as long as he opposes it, there is no way the investment will pass through the board, and asks why the manager is so afraid of that arrogant boy. Chen calls security and orders them to drag that brat out and put their names on the blacklist because they will never again be allowed to spend money within that group. Long points his finger at Cheng and tells him not to dare touch him because he needs to keep his head on straight. And he points out that Tianmu Investment would not even glance at a mere second largest shareholder of the hotel. He walks up to the young lady and says that they need to leave to eat somewhere else. Yang Chen notices that he is not forgetting about that young lady even at a moment like that, and apparently he likes her. So if he can steal her away, he wants to see whether that guy will still act arrogantly. Yang Chen calls Jiayi, asking who said that she has to settle for only one blind date. He picks up a flower and walks over to her, saying that he brought flowers and asking why they cannot sit down and chat for a while. Because the joke he made in the car earlier seems to have frightened her a lot, and considering that, he would like to apologize in a more pleasant way. Jiayi thinks that she is there for a blind date with a rich guy, so why can she not choose someone handsome with personality? She eventually gives in and says that it is fine because she can see that the protagonist is being sincere, so she will give him a chance to make up for the situation. Long becomes furious and asks if she knows what she is doing because he got into that fight with the protagonist because of her, and now she is simply humiliating him. Jie corrects Long, saying that he was never thinking about her at any point, but rather about his own pride. Because she never asked him to get into conflict with Mr. Young, he decided to do that to show off and ended up getting burned badly. Long says that it is fine because, in fact, he does not dare touch Yang Chen, but he can still hurt her. He points out that if she sits down and eats with him now, she will be humiliating him, and she had better think about the consequences. Yang Chen touches her shoulder and leads her to the table, saying that it is fine. With politeness and chivalry, he asks her to sit down and eat in peace, because if any fly buzzes near her, he will chase it away. Long loses control and starts insulting the woman and tries to attack her, but the protagonist steps in front of her and grabs his arm, saying that this is very low because he is trying to hit a woman. Chung orders the security guards to act immediately and throw that trash out. While being dragged away by the guards, Long shouts that he will not let this slide because he is going to tell his father everything. Yang Chen pours her a glass of wine and offers it to her, saying that he would like to introduce himself properly, and says that his name is Yang Chen. He is very happy to be able to have dinner with her. Jie also introduces herself and says that she will remove the negative review soon because apparently they got off on the wrong foot. Yang Chen laughs and says that she does not need to remove the negative review because it is a reminder of the unique first meeting they had. So all they need to do is enjoy the moment and have a nice drink. Two other people were sitting on the other side of the restaurant. The woman wonders if that might be the arrogance of the rich because that boy had simply stolen the other guy's blind date. But the man who was with her thinks that being rich really is great because he can do whatever he wants. Jie asks the protagonist what his family does. Yang Chen explains that his parents died in an accident years ago, and now he is just a ride-hailing driver, and asks what she does. Jie says that her hometown is Sioux City, and that she currently works at a luxury goods store. But she wants to stay in that city, so she is there for a blind date. The protagonist smiles, saying that everyone has the right to seek a better life. There is nothing shameful about women relying on other men. Yang Chen thinks that, unlike Fei Fei and Xin Yi, Jie is being very honest and that she is not the hypocritical type. She agrees with the protagonist and offers a toast to them. After drinking a little, she turns red and asks if he knows why she had been so prejudiced against him inside that car. She explains that she had 2 blind dates that day, and the first guy was doing well at the beginning, but he tried to kiss her while they were in the dark inside the movie theater. Yang Chen says that apparently she was not very interested in that other guy because if she had liked him, she definitely would not have refused a kiss. But she gets a little embarrassed, saying that this has nothing to do with liking someone or not, and asks who kisses on the first date, because if they met again, he would have gone even further. Yang Chen says that kissing has nothing to do with how many times people meet. It is entirely about the mood and the vibe in the moment. As long as the mood is good and the feeling is there, people can even go all the way on the first date. Jie remains a little embarrassed and says that she does not really believe that, asking how someone could be willing to kiss someone they had just met for the very first time. Yang Chen stands up and slowly walks toward her, and while holding her face, gives her a deep kiss. After that, he turns around and starts to leave, telling her to enjoy the meal and that after she finishes eating whatever she wants, she can just put the bill in his name because he will be going up to room 1208 to get some rest. Jie is speechless, asking if he really just kissed her, but she does not know why she did not try to pull away. A little later, while she is alone, she thinks that the protagonist mentioned the room number on purpose, and that he was probably inviting her. However, she is still very embarrassed and tries to ignore that kind of thought. Meanwhile, inside his room, Yang Chen had just gotten out of the shower and heard someone knocking on the door. He goes over there and as soon as he opens it, sees that it is her standing outside. He tries to speak to her, but she simply throws herself into his arms and kisses him, saying that she is feeling very hot. Yang Chen laughs and says that she is a little drunk. Jie runs her hand over his abdomen, saying that he has 8 abs and a perfect texture and she cannot resist that. Yang Chen picks her up in his arms and says that she was the one who started it. He kicks the door shut and throws himself onto the bed with her. The next day, the protagonist wakes up and looks to the side, asking if she has already left. But as he gets up, he notices a red stain on the mattress and asks if that could be blood. He notices that there is something on the table, a little money with a note. As soon as he reads the note, he realizes that it says that he did very well last night and she was very satisfied, and that the 3,000 yuan on the table is the service fee. She asks him to use that to recharge his batteries. In addition, she asks him not to go out partying that month so that he can save his energy because when she gets her salary, she will come back again to book another night with him. The protagonist laughs and thinks that that woman is very interesting. A little later, he goes to the Haishang Financial Tower, which is his old workplace, and tells the receptionist that he is there to pick up some things and introduces himself. The young man runs up to the protagonist and says that his name is Chen Jichao, the manager of the building's management office. He asks the protagonist to wait there for a moment because he will go get them immediately. The women who were there say that the new boss is very young and is probably just a rich kid. The other wonders whether he is going to start by firing people or restructuring everything. A little later, Jichao returns with an envelope and says that all the items are inside. He asks Young Chen to feel free to check them, and if there is any problem, he can just let him know immediately, and he will resolve whatever is necessary. The protagonist says that there is no need, because he trusts that manager Jichao is an honest man who would not touch other people's things. However, he will still have to keep bothering the others a little so that they can continue managing the financial tower. Jichao laughs and says that the protagonist is a very kind person. He calls the other two girls over to greet the new boss. They bow and greet him, but the protagonist says that there is no need for formalities and asks them to go back to work. He asks Jichao to give him a report on the lease situation from 1506 to 1508. Jichao quickly gets the report and says that the rental information he requested is there, and the tenant's name is Jingyan, and the contract expires at the end of that month. The protagonist says that their lease is almost over and that he would like to go visit them. While they are in the elevator, the manager's phone rings and he tells the protagonist that a client scheduled a call for that day to ask about the rent. He asks if he can answer the call before going in. Young Chen says that it is fine and asks the manager to answer his call because he will go ahead first. A little later, he enters the advertising office and says that apparently everyone is busy. His former co-workers are surprised to see him and ask why he is back. One of his co-workers asks why he gave up and wonders whether he wants him to beg the boss to consider hiring him. But the protagonist refuses. Yang Chen shouts that he is there for his payment and asks where Jingyan is, telling them to bring him out immediately. Jingyan appears and asks the protagonist why he is shouting and where he thinks he is, as if it were a place where he can simply walk in and start yelling. Yang Chen looks at his former boss and says that apparently he really has lost his mind because he thought he would not dare show his face. He asks whether the commission his former boss owes him is already prepared. Jingyan says that if he wants the commission, that is fine, but he has to apologize and come back to work obediently. And he offers a new contract because for each month that he manages to close at least one deal, he will receive 10,000. Yang Chen asks him to stop talking so close like that because the smell is not very pleasant. Besides, he had clearly promised a 20% commission as soon as the project was successful, and he did not mention any other condition. Jingyan starts laughing and asks where the proof is because he needs evidence. It is not enough just to say that the other person said something, because that does not mean it happened. Because if that is the case, he can also say that the protagonist had promised to work for him for free without asking for a single cent. Yang Chen points out that everyone inside that company heard the agreement, so the proof is in each person's heart. Jingyan asks everyone to say whether anyone heard him say that he would give a 20% commission. One of the people says no and says that the protagonist probably heard it wrong. Yang Chen looks at everyone and asks if they know that what he is today is what they will be tomorrow. Another man arrives and tells the protagonist that the boss is showing extra mercy and he should thank him and go back to work. Jingyan says that is exactly right and points out that he appreciates the protagonist as a talent, and that is his only chance, so he does not need to be ungrateful. He tells the protagonist to go back to his desk and do his work because he still has to go downstairs and discuss the lease renewal with the administration, asking whether he has any idea how hard it is for an owner like him to feed so many employees. One of the bootlickers tells the boss that that is exactly right, because everyone should be grateful to the boss for providing a platform to show their talents. Yang Chen says that this is twisted logic, because he is there to work and make money. If he does not receive the payment he is owed, then why should he be grateful? And in fact, those who have no shame are invincible. He points out that he recorded everything his boss said and will file for arbitration right away, because he refuses to believe that the law cannot deal with people like him. Jingyan orders everyone to lock the doors and grab that phone immediately. One of the employees agrees with his boss and locks the door from the outside. The manager had only been watching and asks why they locked the door and whether the new boss might be in some kind of trouble. Jingyan points at the protagonist, ordering him to delete the recording right away, because only then will he be able to leave that place. Jingyan smashes a computer and says that everyone saw that the protagonist destroyed that computer, so his salary has been completely forfeited. Yang Chen says that his recording is still running and his former boss knows that he just admitted that it was captured. Besides, Jingyan probably does not know what cloud backup is, because even if he deletes it from his phone, there is still a copy stored online. Jingyan says that the protagonist is truly filthy for secretly recording him and asks whether he has no shame. The blue-haired guy asks his boss why they need to waste words on that trash because all they have to do is use brute force and destroy the backup too. And when they are done, they will just say that he came there to wreck the office and they had to subdue him. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. Jingyan opens the door and asks the manager why he is there in person, since he points out that he was just about to go downstairs to discuss the lease renewal with him. Zhu says that he is looking for Boss Yang and asks why they were locking the door in broad daylight and whether it is possible that they did something to the new boss. Jingyan gets a little confused by the conversation and asks who this new boss is that he is talking about. Jichao asks who else it could be and points at the protagonist, saying that he is standing right there. Yang Chen is the new owner of that building and asks if Jingyan is really trying to deceive the new boss. Jingyan remains confused, unable to believe what was happening. The manager walks into the office and asks the protagonist what happened there, pointing out that he is very sorry for the delay because he should not have answered that phone call. Yang Chen says that it is fine because he arrived at just the right time. Jingyan asks the manager again what he means by a new boss. Jichao says that he will formally introduce him to everyone and points out that he is Boss Yang, who just bought Haishang for 2 billion, and now he is the person who has complete power over everything there. The people are completely shocked, asking if he really spent 2 billion to buy that place, because if that is true, why was he working there before? The former boss thinks that that boy quit yesterday and bought the whole building, and it is obvious that he is out for revenge. The thug walks up to the manager and asks whether it is possible that he is mistaken, and maybe he just has the same name as the new boss. Jichao shouts at the blue-haired guy, asking if he is implying that the manager is blind because it is obvious that he knows who his new boss is. Jingyan quickly changes his attitude and takes the protagonist's hand, asking him not to be angry because all of that was just a misunderstanding, and admits that he was wrong and deserves to be punished. He says that he will pay double the salary he owes the protagonist, and they can simply leave all those unpleasant things in the past. Jichao hears that and asks his new boss if he worked there before, and that guy withheld his pay. The protagonist says yes. Jichao points at Jingyan and says that his contract is very clear. He must operate legally and in good faith, otherwise they will have the right to terminate the contract and demand triple the rent as compensation. And surely he has not forgotten that clause. Yang Chen says that if there is a clause like that, then it is good for the manager to watch that recording first. As soon as he presses play, it shows Jingyan saying that if the protagonist wants his salary and commission, that is fine. But he needs to come back and work obediently, and for every month he closes at least one deal, he will receive 10,000 more in pay. Jingyan tries to smooth things over, telling Yang Chen that there is no need for them to burn bridges, and once again offers to pay triple the commission if he deletes the recording, and then they will be even. The protagonist says that there is absolutely no need for that, because he only wants what is rightfully his and does not want a single cent more. He starts to walk out of the office and tells the manager that he will leave that situation for him to handle. However, he needs to make sure that the outcome is satisfactory. Jichao asks his boss not to worry because he will handle it perfectly. Jingyan steps in front of the protagonist, saying that he has already been humiliated and admitted defeat, and asks why he needs to act so cruelly, asking if he really cannot leave him a way out because, as the protagonist knows, one day he may fall into his hands again. Yang Chen points out that he is the kind of person who never leaves a way back, and that if he worried about things like that, how could he have quit that place? Jingyan asks if it is really going to be like this, if there is no room for negotiation. Yang Chen asks what qualifications his former boss has to negotiate with him now. Jingyan gets irritated and tells everyone to listen carefully because whoever grabs the protagonist's phone will receive 50,000 as a reward, but none of them dare to stand up. Jingyan offers 100,000 if they grab the phone and says they will have their salary doubled. Yang Chen laughs and asks Jingyan if he thinks his words still have any credibility, because the protagonist had closed the deal fairly and he refused to pay the commission he owed. So how does he expect people to truly believe that they will receive what was promised after grabbing the phone? Jingyan keeps getting more and more irritated. The manager notices this and makes a call, ordering all the security employees to be summoned immediately and sent to the building right away. 10 minutes later, the two female employees from before notice a huge commotion and ask what was happening. The other says that nobody knows because all the security guards are there, and apparently Jingyan offended someone very powerful. As soon as all the security guards gather nearby, the manager says that now he would like to see who dares threaten the boss again. Jingyan is paralyzed with fear, seeing that there is absolutely nothing he can do. Yang Chen says that he needs to leave and tells the manager to finish that immediately. The manager asks him not to worry because he will take care of it. Before leaving, the protagonist tells everyone that that arrogant man named Jingyan is completely finished and that while he is settling things, all of them should hurry and collect what that guy owes them, because now is the time for revenge. Otherwise, once he is dismantled and goes bankrupt, they will not receive a single cent. The people start speaking up, saying that that guy constantly forced them to work overtime and never paid them. Besides making them sign contracts with the finance department, even the employee who had been on Jingyan's side turns against him, agreeing with some of the others and saying that many times he deducted from their salary for no reason. Jingyan asks whether Li Yuan is really going to kick him while he is down. Li Yuan says that he firmly stands against injustice and has hated him for a long time, but did not dare resist because he had to make money. And now, boss Yang Chen has provided the help they needed, so they can report that abuse. The protagonist thinks that that bootlicker is a two-headed snake. Quickly, the advertising office was shut down. While packing his things, Jingyan tells the protagonist that he managed to ruin everything and therefore will not live comfortably. Yang Chen says that Jingyan destroyed himself and does not need to blame anyone else for that, and that this world is ruled by laws, and just because he is the boss does not mean he can do whatever he wants. Before all the employees left that place, the protagonist asks everyone to listen carefully and points out that he is planning to open an advertising company there and will use that office, and asks whether anyone would like to join him. Some people raise their hands, saying that they are in. Li Yuan also tries to be part of it, but the protagonist walks up to him and says that until now he had been Jingyan's loyal lackey, so why is he now trying to jump onto another boat? And orders him to get out of there immediately because he is not welcome in that place. Li Yuan throws himself on the floor and calls the protagonist's boss, saying that if he goes with him to file a labor arbitration complaint against that filthy man, maybe they can forget about it. Yang Chen points out that even if Li Yuan killed Jingyan, he still could not accept him there because he has no financial results, and there is no way he can keep a person like that. He kicks Li Yuan out, telling him to get out of there already. Yang Chen walks over to the other employees who were waiting and says that it will take at most half a month before they can return to work, and from that point on, Xu Xiaoli will be the manager, and if they have any problem, they can go directly to her. Xiaoli is surprised by that, but the protagonist continues explaining that they can consider it a short break and they can go home, get some rest, and wait for the notification to come back and start working. Xiaoli walks up to the protagonist and asks if he really wants her to be the manager, because she has no experience at all and does not know whether she can do it. Yang Chen says that it does not matter if she has no experience. As long as she can learn properly, that is what really matters. Xiaoli is happy and tells him not to worry because she will definitely listen to everything he has to say and will study as much as possible to learn everything necessary. All of them bow to the new boss, thanking him for the job opportunity. Yang Chen says goodbye to everyone and thanks them all for their hard work. Back in the parking lot, he says that he finally got his revenge and now needs to get back to work. He gets into his car, opens the app, and the system tells him that he has a new ride. The destination is only 500 meters away. He thinks he is already on the way and would be a fool not to accept it. As soon as he arrives, he sees two people standing there. He notices that the woman looks a lot like his college classmate Wang Lixin and wonders what the odds are. She gets into the car and feels a little happy to see that the protagonist is there. Yang Chen says that this is a huge coincidence and asks if she went out on a date with her boyfriend. She says that she will introduce her boyfriend named Zheng Jiankun. She also introduces the protagonist to her boyfriend, saying that he is her college classmate and, back at the university, he was the top student and the heartthrob of the campus. Jiankun asks if that boy really was that popular with girls. Lixin says yes, and that so many girls liked him. But it is a pity that he already had a girlfriend. She asks the protagonist whether the two of them have already broken up, but then realizes that was impolite and apologizes because what she actually meant was how far they had managed to progress, because they are probably already close to getting married. The protagonist steps on the brake and says that they broke up. Lixin says that is a pity because back then the protagonist rejected a lot of girls and now he is probably regretting it. Yang Chen looks at her and says that he just rejected her too and asks whether there is any need for her to ask that kind of question. Lixin says that that is not what she meant and that, in fact, she has to be grateful that he had no interest in her and rejected and publicly insulted her back then, because otherwise she would be living a miserable life with him by now. Jiankun asks if the protagonist really insulted her, and she says yes because she confessed to him when she was 19, and he could have rejected her, but he had no right to insult her directly. Yang Chen says that it has been a very long time, and he cannot remember what he said back then, and if he really did say it, it was in the heat of the moment, and because of that, he apologizes. Jiankun touches the protagonist on the shoulder and says that he really noticed that apology was sincere, and points out that his company is hiring an employee to serve tea and pour clean water, and he asks why he does not stop driving for a ride-hailing app and go work at his company. Lixin says that this is excellent because her boyfriend is the planning department manager at Heiyun Advertising, and if the protagonist wants to work there, she can ask her boyfriend to take care of him. Yang Chen refuses, saying that he thinks driving is going very well because he does not need an office job. He begins to roll down the window and she asks why he is doing that, telling him to close the window and turn on the air conditioner because she is sweating a lot. Yang Chen points out that the platform does not require air conditioning and if she wants it, that is not impossible. She just has to say something nice, and he might be in a good enough mood to turn on the air for her. Jiankun gets irritated and asks what the protagonist just said because If it were not for the fact that he is a college classmate, he would have already hit him. He orders him to turn on the air immediately because if he is forced to use his hands, it will not end well. Lixin asks her boyfriend to control himself and not do anything reckless because the protagonist is driving the car at the moment. She tries to persuade him to turn on the air, saying that they are classmates and he could easily turn on the air conditioner, and she would act as if nothing had happened. Otherwise, she will definitely leave a negative review and file a complaint. Yang Chen tells her not to think he will be scared by a negative review, because if she does not want to stay inside the car, she can simply get out. Jiankun thinks that was the last straw and becomes extremely irritated, ordering him to stop the car immediately. The protagonist stops and the two of them get out. He walks to the door and starts kicking the car, ordering the protagonist to get out right away. Yang Chen laughs and says that he will not get out because that day is very hot and the two of them can stay there and enjoy the summer sun. He accelerates the car and leaves the two of them behind. Jiankun tries to run after the car, but obviously that is a foolish idea, and he cannot do absolutely anything. Lixin walks up to her boyfriend and asks where they are. He says that this is the bridge that crosses the river, and he does not think she has permission to be there. She asks what they're going to do. Jiankun takes out his phone and says that he is going to leave him a negative review and call to report him, to make sure he ends up completely unemployed. Meanwhile, somewhere else inside the car, the system tells the protagonist that he has a new negative review and congratulates him. With that, he obtained a negative evaluation through pure skill, and the system reward was 2 million in cash. He thinks that being exposed to the midday sun on the river bridge should not be very pleasant. He receives a message from Lixin asking him what is going on and why he went to drive for a ride-sharing company, and simply left her on the bridge. He says that he will explain everything so there are no more misunderstandings. He points out that he quit a few days ago and is driving to fill the gap, and if she thinks it is shameful for her classmate to be a driver, she can feel free to pretend she does not know him when they meet in the future. In addition, he states that he will download the car recording and send it to customer service for review, and will also post it in the group for everyone to hear. As soon as he posts the recording in the group, people ask Lixin what that has to do with her, because she is clearly looking down on the protagonist for driving and is now trying to humiliate him or play the victim while acting superior. Meanwhile, still on the bridge, Lixin gets irritated, saying that the protagonist posted the recording in the school class group and now everyone is blaming her. Jiankun gets very angry, saying that he's going to kill that guy over it. He tells her to send a message saying that she will offer a dinner at Baoking restaurant that Sunday to apologize and lure him there, because that way he can make the protagonist lose face in front of the whole class. She becomes happy, saying that he is very smart and that she will distract him while he does all of that. Yang Chen sees that in the group and says that this is not an apology dinner but a trap, and that depends on whether he feels like showing up that day or not. Suddenly it starts raining and he thinks that nature really is on his side, since Lixin and Jiankun are going to spend quite a while on that bridge. A little later he arrives to pick up another passenger and gets in touch, but the woman says that it is raining very hard and there is no way she can get to the car, and asks whether the protagonist can go pick her up. He says that it is fine and that he will go get her and asks if she is Miss Zhang, but the woman says that there is a lot of water on the ground and she cannot walk through that water, asking whether the protagonist could carry her. Yang Chen apologizes and says that unless she has some kind of mobility issue, he does not provide that kind of service. She asks the driver to look at her new shoes and points out that the ground is covered in water, asking what the problem is with him carrying her, because many people would kill for the chance to carry her in their arms. Yang Chen remains firm and offers her the umbrella, apologizing, and states again that he does not provide that service. At most, he can lend her the umbrella so she can walk to the car by herself. She gets a little annoyed by the situation, but eventually accepts the umbrella and walks to the car. As soon as she gets into the car, she keeps acting arrogantly, telling him to drive already because she has already been very unlucky, and if he keeps being unpleasant, she will report him. Yang Chen asks her to fasten her seatbelt because they are heading to the garden. A little later, they arrive at the destination, and the protagonist says that they have already arrived and she can take her belongings and get out of the car immediately. But she says that there is not the slightest chance she will do that because there is too much water on the ground and she already got her shoe dirty earlier. So she cannot go back by herself and he needs to drive the car up to her floor. Yang Chen points out that this is a car and not an airplane, so how could he possibly take her up to her floor? He points out that he already brought her to the entrance of the building and she only needs to get out and take a few steps. The woman shouts, saying that she does not care because he works in the service industry and needs to make sure that she is satisfied. And at the moment, she is extremely dissatisfied with everything he has done. She is going to report him because she is calling to file a complaint right away. Yang Chen says that is fine and tells her to get out of the car while she reports him, but the woman refuses, saying that she will not get out until he takes her up to her floor. Yang Chen takes the car key and grabs the umbrella, saying that she can stay in there as long as she wants. She gets out of the car and he says goodbye to her, saying that he is going to get a snack now. The woman, soaking wet, gets irritated and says that she is going to file a complaint right now. But while she's walking in the rain, she notices that the car is coming toward her. The protagonist drives past, speeding up and splashing water on her. Inside the car, he keeps laughing, saying that the forest is big enough to shelter all kinds of birds, and with enough people around, he will definitely run into some strange ones. And he notices that he was already out of tea leaves. The system woman appears once again, congratulating him and saying that he successfully obtained a negative review and a complaint. As a system reward, he received 50 grams of tea leaves from the mother tree of Hong Pao. He only needs to open the trunk to claim his reward. Yang Chen says that that system really is very useful, but asks her whether she is really going to brag about a mere 50 grams. The woman tells her master that he probably does not realize it, but that tea is worth more than gold. In previous auctions, 20 grams cost more than 200,000, and today it is such a rare treasure that he cannot even buy it with money. Yang Chen is surprised to find out that it really is that expensive. He stops the car and goes to the trunk, thinking that that small bag is worth more than 200,000, and that is a little extravagant. He smells it and says that it is very good and thinks that, in any case, he has 50 grams, so he will brew some to see whether it really tastes that good. The system appears again saying that it detected an additional negative review from a passenger and that the critical hit reward has been activated. He obtained a house in Riverside number 1. He needs to go there and stay at the house tomorrow morning to wait for the courier. The property rights documents, the keys, along with other items will be delivered to him. While savoring his tea, he thinks that a house in that place, which was considered the king of buildings at that time, was worth at least 500 million. And that additional negative review was a stroke of genius. And the taste of that tea is truly excellent. He gets ready to leave and sees a woman approaching the car. She gets into the car and the protagonist asks what she thinks she is doing. The woman tells him to just drive and says that the money will be entirely his. But the protagonist apologizes and explains that this is not a taxi but a ride-sharing service, and she needs to book through the app, so he has to ask her to get out of the car. But the woman says that she already told him to drive and asks what is so problematic and why all that talking, pointing out that she is going in that car whether he likes it or not. A man starts approaching and knocks on the window, asking the protagonist to open the door. The woman tells him not to dare because if he opens that door, she will bite the protagonist. Yang Chen asks if she knows that guy, but she says no. He lowers the window and asks the guy if he knows that girl. The man, irritated, says that that is nonsense because that is his girlfriend, so how could he not know her? The woman, irritated, asks who there is his girlfriend and points out that they were only talking on a blind date, so when exactly did she become someone's girlfriend? The man gets angry, telling Chiani that her father owes his family 5 million and that guy used her as collateral, so why is she pretending to be clueless? He tells her to get out because he already booked the hotel room and does not want to ruin his mood. Chiani asks whether the protagonist just heard that whole story because they are not in a relationship, and if she is handed over to that guy, he will force her to do things she does not want, and that will make the protagonist an accomplice. The man shouts, telling Yang Chen that this has nothing to do with him, and asks him not to interfere in other people's business. Yang Chen asks Gianni why she does not call the police because he is only a rideshare driver and does not want to get involved in that kind of conflict. She gets irritated, asking why he is so cowardly and pathetic, absolutely useless. Yang Chen asks why he is the coward because her father should be the biggest coward of all, and he has no connection to her and no obligation whatsoever to protect her, because if she needs help, she just has to call the police. The man runs to the other side of the car and starts cursing at the woman, trying to open the door. She screams desperately, asking the protagonist to get out of there, begging him to have pity on her and try to save her. Yang Chen keeps telling her to call the police since she had been acting so arrogantly earlier. She points out that she really does want to call the police, but even if they went to the station, her family has no money to pay the debt. The man manages to open the door and says that she is a very ungrateful girl, so he is going to use her right there in the car. He asks the protagonist to open the back door and let him in, because they can go to a suburb and the two of them can have fun. Yang Chen simply starts the car. The man asks what he thinks he is doing, because if he takes that girl away, he will destroy Haicheng just to find him and kill him. He says that his name is Zheng Hengji, the young master of the Yaowu group. The protagonist simply steps on the accelerator, saying that it does not matter what company that idiot is from. He speeds up and leaves the man behind. But he gets into his own car, saying that he is going to settle this situation. Chiani completely changes her attitude, saying that the protagonist is a very handsome and manly person. Yang Chen points out that flattery will not work on him because he is not interested in her and will leave her up ahead, and she can get another car to go home. However, Hung Zi appears with his car, trying to cut the protagonist off, telling him to stop because he is warning him that this is stupidity. Chiani gets even more frightened, saying that that guy is chasing them and now she cannot be left behind. The protagonist jerks his car to the side, causing Hung Zi to lose control. She is impressed, saying that he finally crashed. Yang Chen stops at the bus stop and tells her to get out of the car immediately. But Chiani says that she will give him a chance, saying that if he takes her home, she will give him her first time, because that is still better than being taken by that idiot. Yang Chen gets irritated, saying that he is getting the feeling that she is trying to set him up, and tells her to get out of the car immediately. She gets out of the car, calling him a coward again, saying that he is a very blind idiot. He goes to his new house by the river, and a man approaches with some documents, asking if he is Mr. Yang, because the property deed, the transaction contract, along with the key, are all there. And he will accompany him to the house later, and they will take care of parking the car for the protagonist. As soon as he enters the house, he says that it is great because everything is already ready and all he needs to do now is bring a few clothes. And suddenly, his cell phone starts ringing. The person says that he is the hotel board secretary and needs him to appear at the headquarters meeting tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon. The next day, the protagonist goes to the hotel and apologizes for being late and introduces himself, saying that it is an honor to meet all the shareholders. The man smiles and asks the protagonist to sit down, and points out that he did not expect the new second-largest shareholder to be so young because he thought he would be a little older and more experienced. The young man introduces the group president named Li Wanhong and the head of Tianmu Invest named Zhang Wu. He points out that the topic of that day's meeting is Tianmu's capital injection into the Quandao hotels. The protagonist thinks that that company belongs to that young man who went on the blind date with Jie. The hotel president says that now everyone has been introduced and they will get straight to the point. He points out that he heard what happened between the protagonist and Zhang Wu's son, and since they are there, they can talk about it. Zhang Wu says that that boy is just an ignorant young man and hopes that Yang Chen will not take him so seriously. The protagonist says that it is not quite the way Zhang Wu is describing it because his son was acting quite lofty and powerful not long ago. And he asks whether the president really thinks that a simple request for him not to mind it will make everything okay, because that would turn him into a teenage mutant ninja turtle. Wan Hong steps into the discussion and says that for everyone's sake, Zhang Wu should swallow a little of his pride because if all of them fail, they can make his son apologize. But Zhang Wu starts getting irritated, saying that his son did nothing wrong because if his girlfriend is being bullied, he should be allowed to defend her. Yang Chen asks Wan Hong whether there is anything else on the meeting agenda besides the investment. The president says there is not. The protagonist stands up and says that he wants to make his position very clear. He points out that he does not approve of Tianmu investing in the Quandao Group. He adds that he has other matters to deal with and is leaving. They try to ask the protagonist to think it over a little, but he simply walks out and shuts the door. Zhang Wu becomes even more irritated, saying that that boy is very arrogant because he is bringing money to invest in the hotels and they should be flattering him. But apparently the one who looks like he is begging is himself. Wan Hong asks Zhang Wu not to get angry because young people tend to have a bit of a temper, and because of that, he will have to speak with the protagonist a little later. He suggests that President Zhang Wu do the same with his son, because if a simple apology can solve the problem, then why can they not do that? Zhang Wu ends up agreeing and says that he will talk to his son and ask them to adjourn the meeting for now. As soon as he arrives at the parking lot, Heng Ji appears, saying that he finally managed to find him and, with a bunch of people behind him, says that he probably did not think that could happen. The protagonist asks how he was found there, and Heng Ji says that he had already warned him the day before because if he took that girl away, he would tear the city apart to find him. The protagonist gets ready and asks if he wants to fight, but Heng Ji says that for now, he is not in a hurry because he will definitely win, and right now he only intends to destroy that car on impulse. The protagonist records all of that action, and Heng Ji says that he does not need to record it because he can cover the property damage and settle it through legal channels, which will leave the protagonist stranded for at least half a year or more. And he asks how he will make a living without being able to drive that stupid car. Suddenly, a red car appears. Chiani gets out from inside, thinking that the world is very small. She argues with Heng Ji, asking if he has lost his mind. She asks why he smashed the protagonist's car, because she had promised to spend that night with him, and asks if he thinks that is fun. Heng Ji says that it is very fun and actually downright hilarious, because he only wanted to destroy the protagonist's livelihood, and asks what she thinks is wrong with that. He asks if she feels sorry for that poor boy, because apparently she is really interested in a ride-hailing driver, and that is pathetic. Chiani says that her family owes his family money, and as long as they pay it back, he will never see her again. Long approaches the protagonist. He says that that guy looks like a complete thug and asks what he did to offend that man. Yang Chen says that it is a long story and asks why he is there after the investment meeting has already ended. Long shows that he had been slapped and says that all of that is the protagonist's fault. His father made him come there to apologize, otherwise Yang Chen would not agree to his family's investment. Yang Chen laughs and asks his new friend whether his family is really very rich. Long says yes and points out that his family has a total of 1 billion in assets. Yang Chen points at Heng Ji and asks if he knows that guy. Long says yes because his family's company has stakes in several real estate ventures belonging to that man. Yang Chen starts laughing and asks if he really wants to wipe the slate clean between the two of them without having to apologize. Long asks if he is suggesting that he can calm that situation down. The protagonist points out that he is very smart and because of that, they can make a deal. He says that if Long settles Chiani's family debt, then he will agree to an investment in the hotel group. Long asks why the protagonist does not offer money to that woman's family himself, since he has a 28% stake in the hotel group. And that is valued at $3 billion, so $50 million for him should be absolutely nothing. Yang Chen points at his broken car, saying that he is still driving a ride-sharing service, and asks whether he cannot understand what that means. Long asks if he is from some family, but the protagonist interrupts him, asking for silence. Long understands the situation and says that he gets it, telling the protagonist to have that girl's father bring people to his family company's office before 9 in the morning to discuss the details. Yang Chen walks up to Chiani, saying that she can tell her father to bring some people to Tianmu Invest before 9 in the morning to discuss the loan. President Zhang has already agreed, and if she agrees, she can discuss the matter herself. Chiani jumps on the protagonist, saying that she is willing, and apparently he finally woke up, because she had thought her long legs would not be enough for him. Hongji gets confused and asks Long why that is happening, and asks if his family is lending money to that woman's family, and apparently Long is working against him. Long takes a deep breath and says that he is not working against anyone, and points out that the protagonist is the second largest shareholder of the Quandao Group, and they have been working on that group investment for more than a year and cannot let all of it collapse. Hongji is surprised but refuses to believe it, saying that Long must be mistaken, because how can a ride-hailing driver actually be the second largest shareholder of the Quandao Group? Long asks Hongji if he finally understands what is going on there. Hongji drops his baton to the ground and says that now he is completely lost, because the protagonist is probably descended from some important family and is gaining experience there. One of his lackeys walks up to his master and asks what they're going to do, because he provoked the young master of an important family, and now they need to take responsibility for that. Hongji realizes the stupidity he just committed, grabs a cigarette and walks over to the protagonist, saying that he is the second largest shareholder of the Quandao Group, and asking why he did not say that earlier, because if that had been said earlier, he might have made a slightly smaller mistake. Yang Chen asks Hongji if he thinks everyone is like him, desperate for the whole world to know that he is Zhang Yaowu's son. Suddenly, two officers appear asking what is going on there and who called the police. Chiani says that she made the call because someone smashed her friend's car. Hongji's friends say that they were the ones who smashed the car, however, they only did it because Hongji ordered them to. One of the officers walks over to Hongji and asks him to explain himself and say exactly what is going on and why he destroyed someone else's vehicle. Hongji acts arrogantly, saying that his name is Zhang Hongji and that he is Zhang Yaowu's son, president of the Yaowu Group. The officer asks whether he is willing to offer compensation voluntarily. Thinking he has the upper hand, he says that he can pay for the damages, but first, he would like it to go through a judicial ruling. The officer asks if he is stupid and explains that if that situation reaches that point, a judicial ruling will not be something that can be settled only with money. Deliberately damaging someone else's property above 5,000 reaches the threshold for a crime, and he asks if he understands. Hongji keeps saying that his father is Zhang Yaowu, but the officer cuts him off, saying that it does not matter who his father is. Deliberately damaging someone else's property is a criminal act, and he had better think carefully about how he is going to resolve that situation. Hongji says that they just need to issue a fine, because he is willing to voluntarily pay for that guy's car. It is not as if he does not have money for that. He asks if 100,000 is enough. The protagonist asks when he ever said that he accepted a private settlement, because he is going to let the court decide that. Hongji raises the amount to 200,000 and points out that that old car is worth around 10,000, and because of that, he does not need to be so greedy. Yang Chen points out that this is not just about money, because he is seeking justice. Hongji takes a deep breath and keeps mocking, saying that will not scare him because they will file the case, and it does not matter if he ends up with a criminal record because he does not need to look for a job, he just has to wait to inherit his father's family fortune. The officers ask him to stop acting so arrogantly and begin taking him away. Sometime later, one of the police officers brings Hongxi's father to try to negotiate with the protagonist. As soon as that guy's father arrives, he asks the protagonist to name a number. Yang Chen starts laughing, saying that he really is that idiot's father and thinks he can solve problems in exactly the same way, and not a single apology comes out of anyone's mouth. He points out that he is not comfortable with that kind of situation and will take this all the way to court. Yao Wu offers 500,000, but the protagonist shouts at him, saying that he already said it is not about the money and asks if they cannot understand simple language. Yao Wu throws a 1 million check onto the table, saying that he cannot go any higher than that because if his company were not in a critical situation with its public listing, he would not be speaking so politely to the protagonist, so he should be grateful. Yang Chen simply ignores him and asks the officer if he can leave now. The officer says that it is fine, however he needs to sign that non-mediation agreement so they can proceed through legal channels. Yang Chen signs the document, but Yao Wu asks him to leave others a way out, because that way he will find it easier to get ahead in the future. He points out that the protagonist is still young, so he does not need to restrict his own path. Yang Chen asks if he is done saying all that absurd nonsense because he needs to go. He thinks that he has been dealing with threats from debt collectors since he was 15, and that guy really thinks his little threats will work. As soon as he finishes dealing with everything, he turns his back saying that he will see him in court. Yang Chen goes to another office and a woman says that the property photos have been taken and the keys are there. She asks whether he has any opinion on the price, but the protagonist says no, and that they can set the price based on current market trends. He says that now the house is in her hands and if any problem comes up, she just needs to get in touch. As he walks, he points out that he needs to buy a car as soon as possible, because he cannot let that interfere with his ride-sharing business, and maybe he can buy an electric vehicle. The system woman appears again, saying that the system detected that he received additional negative feedback and the critical damage reward has been activated. Yang Chen laughs and asks what kind of treat it will be this time. The system woman kisses him and congratulates him, saying that he received a limited edition luxury car. The exterior of the car looks like a standard sedan, perfect for his ride-sharing business. While kissing him, she tells him to go to the underground parking garage to pick up his vehicle. Then the protagonist takes the key, saying that the system really is very generous. He thinks that he was going home to rest, but apparently it is time to fight again. While he was enjoying a wonderful feeling, sitting by the river behind his house, a woman was watching. A subordinate walks up to her and says that dinner is ready. She is She Yinong, the owner of the house next door. She asks her subordinate if she managed to find out anything about the owner of the neighboring house, just as she had requested. The maid says that she asked the security guard, and the guard said that he is the new owner, but he is very young and drives a very simple car and does not seem that rich. Yinong thinks that that boy is very low-key and wonders whether he could be the young master of one of the major families. She asks Aunt Lan to bring 2 bottles of wine and pay that boy a visit, but she cannot be too obvious while investigating his background. She only needs to say that they are from house number 8. A little later, Lan rings the protagonist's doorbell. He answers the door and asks if there is anything she needs. She introduces herself, saying that she is the housekeeper of house number 8 across the street, and she says that her mistress prepared a small gift and asked her to deliver it as a welcome greeting. Yang Chen says that they are very kind and asks if he may know the name of the mistress who sent it. Lan says that her mistress's name is She Yinong and asks how she may address the protagonist. He introduces himself, saying that his name is Yang Chen, and says that her mistress is very thoughtful and invites Lan to come in for a while. But she says there is no need and thanks him for the invitation, because she is only there because her mistress told her to pay a visit, since they are neighbors and can look after one another. She asks the protagonist to go get some rest because it is already late and says that she will come again. Back at her house, Yinong asks Lan how it went. The housekeeper says that the protagonist is definitely a young and very handsome man, which means that he must be descended from some powerful family. She points out that she left the gift and came straight back home, so it will not be long before he goes there to return the gesture, so she can relax and wait for that moment to arrive. Yinong says that she has always trusted Lan's work. It is getting late and she asks Lan to go rest a little. The protagonist looks at the clock and thinks that it is still very early, so he can go out and drive for 2 more hours before coming back to sleep. He goes to the movie theater and picks up 2 more passengers. He welcomes the 2 of them and asks them to fasten their seatbelts. The woman is a little rushed, saying that she is a university student of finance and economics, and asks if he can get to the women's dormitory gate before 10:30. Yang Chen points out that the navigation says it is 15 kilometers away, which will take at least 20 minutes, and that will be very difficult. The boy who is with her pleads with him, because his girlfriend's dorm closes at 10:30, so they need help. But the truth is that the boy had planned all of that, because he deliberately dragged things out until that hour, because if he managed to make her sleep outside the dorm, then maybe he could take things one step further that night. Yang Chen steps on the accelerator and says that he will do his best, asking the 2 of them to hold on tight. The girl is happy and thanks him, but the boy is not very happy about that, saying that if he cannot get them to the destination before 10:30, they will not pay and he will have to take them back. The girl asks her boyfriend what he is talking about, but her boyfriend tries to calm her, saying not to worry because he is only trying to scare the driver so that he will drive faster. Yang Chen tells them not to worry because he already promised, so he will definitely keep his promise. Because he also graduated from the University of Finance and Economics, so he knows all the entrances like the back of his hand, and at most, he can get to the destination in 15 minutes. The girl is impressed and asks what department he is from and what the protagonist's name is, introducing herself as Lin Xiaoyu. She points out that she is an English student and that this is a great coincidence, because she did not expect to run into a senior from her university in a ride. The protagonist laughs and says that his name is Yang Chen. The system says that the protagonist has deviated from the route and is recalculating. The girl's boyfriend starts shouting, asking where he is driving and why he changed direction. Yang Chen explains that if they took the main entrance according to the navigation, they definitely would not make it in time. So using the shortcut saves 5 minutes and will ensure that she reaches the dorm gate at the right time. The boyfriend gets a little discouraged, but Zhao Yu points out that apparently he really does know the roads well and asks if they can add each other on WeChat because they could contact him directly if they need a ride in the future. A little later, they arrive at the University of Finance and Economics. She gets out of the car and waves to the woman who was closing the door, saying that she is already coming. Zhao Yu thanks him for the ride and for being so helpful that she arrived on time. Yang Chen looks at the boyfriend who stayed inside the car and asks if he's also getting out there. But the boy only smiles, saying that he will reorder the route and he can simply accept it and continue the request. Suddenly, an unread message appears and the system says that he has a new negative review. Yang Chen thinks that was the only ride he took that night, and it must have been that guy in the back who gave him a bad rating. The system congratulates him and says that he has mastered practical Baji Quan, effective immediately. The protagonist thinks that he managed to gain some power. Yang Chen looks back and asks the boyfriend what that means. Because he managed to get his girlfriend to the dorm on time. So why did he leave a negative review, asking if he did something wrong? And if that happened, he could have simply said so instead of leaving a bad rating. The boy keeps laughing and tells the protagonist to drive properly and not get distracted, because he will explain everything when they arrive. Sometime later, they arrive at the destination and the protagonist says that they have reached the final route and asks the boy if he can explain the reason for the bad rating. The boy sends a message saying that now they can come. Some boys surround the car telling the protagonist to get out immediately. But Yang Chen remains a little confused and asks what the problem is. The boy says that he spent the entire day drinking and having dinner with that girl on purpose, trying to drag things out until the last 15 minutes just to take her to a hotel. And the protagonist could have simply said that there was no time to get her to the dorm, but instead, he took a shortcut and brought her back. Yang Chen remains confused, saying that the two of them are dating, so why would he worry about just one night? Besides, it was the boyfriend himself who encouraged him to drive faster when they got into the car, so how could he possibly know what he was really trying to do? The boy gets out of the car and kicks the protagonist's side mirror, saying that he ruined the plan and now needs to get out of the car. Yang Chen thinks that he has just learned Baji Quan, so taking care of a few idiots should not be a problem. He gets out of the car and the young man says that he actually dares to step out, but that is fine, and orders everyone to finish this quickly so they can go get some skewers. But before they started fighting, the protagonist asks them to wait a minute. The boy asks if he is scared, because if that is what is happening, he just needs to kneel and apologize, and maybe they will spare his life. After all, they are still waiting to go eat skewers, so they cannot waste time. Yang Chen says that there is a camera at the entrance, and it would not be good if the surveillance camera caught them beating him up. So it would be better if they went somewhere dark to fight. Once it is over, he will leave and there will be no evidence. The young man says that the protagonist is indeed a very sensible guy. They go into an alley and screams are heard. A short time later, Yang Chen is standing inside the alley without a single scratch, while everyone else is lying on the ground. The bald man gets up and asks Zhao Zhengyu who exactly he provoked, because they did not even manage to throw a single punch before getting knocked out. He says that Zhengyu needs to take responsibility for this, so he will cover all the medical expenses, because this hurts a lot since that guy hit them very hard. Zhengyu, with his whole face bruised, says that there was no way for him to know that guy was a trained fighter. Besides, his chest also hurts a lot and it feels like he broke a few ribs. Yang Chen drives the car over to them and calls out to Zhengyu, but he refuses to come closer, saying that the protagonist already broke a few of his ribs and if he gets beaten anymore, he might die right there. Yang Chen tells him to come closer because he just wants to talk and will not hit anyone anymore. Zhengyu walks up to the car and the protagonist grabs him by the shirt, ordering him to change that damn negative review immediately because that was the first trip he made in his new car. Zhengyu agrees at once and the protagonist drives away. Xiao Yu calls the protagonist, asking if he also left her boyfriend behind, because she would like to know how much the fare is, since she will make a transfer. Yang Chen says that she does not need to pay anything and can consider it medical expenses, because her boyfriend called some guys to beat him up, and he ended up fighting back and hurting them badly. Besides, if she will allow him to say this, he would like to tell her that that guy is not a good person, and that she should break up with him soon. While Zhengyu is walking down the street completely beaten up, his phone starts ringing. As soon as he answers, Xiao Yu asks why he went to pick a fight with her senior. He gets irritated, saying that they had just met and were already talking so intimately right in front of him. He asks whether she even thought about the feelings he has for her. And apparently, she feels bad because he tried to beat that guy up. Xiao Yu asks if he is going crazy because that is absurd. Jung-yu gets so angry that he hangs up the phone and says that if the protagonist does not want a negative review, then bad luck, because he is getting another one. And on top of that, he will be reported, because he wants to see what the protagonist can do about it. While he is on his way back home, the system says that it has detected that the host received another complaint and that the system's critical reward has been triggered. He has received the opportunity to enhance his overall physical attributes. This process takes 49 minutes, and once the protagonist is ready, he can give the system the command to begin the physical enhancement. Yang Chen thinks that, thanks to that idiot's complaint, another great gift has been delivered to him. He enters his house and lies down on his bed, telling the system to begin enhancing his body. The system says that the host command has been received and that the enhancement will now begin. The host body will be modified and he needs to hold on. The whole process will last 49 minutes and cannot be interrupted. The enhancement begins, and 49 minutes later, the protagonist gets up from the bed. The system says that the enhancement has been completed successfully. The host can now move freely, and from now on, excluding external factors such as weapons, he is the strongest man on Earth. Yang Chen starts laughing because now he is the strongest man on Earth. However, he notices a very bad smell and asks why he smells so awful, until he realizes that this might be the legendary cleansing of the meridians and marrow, so he needs to wash up quickly. The next day, he is running down the street and sees Yinong. He greets her, and with a smile on her face, she says that he must be Yang Chen, the owner of house number 1. He says that she is right and thanks her for the gift she gave him, pointing out that he liked it very much. Yinong says that there is no need to thank her. As long as he liked it, that is what matters. Yang Chen says that he really liked it and that he will not interrupt her morning exercise, and says goodbye, saying that he hopes to meet her again next time. She thinks that this was already what she expected from the young master of a prominent family because he is very polite. On the other hand, the protagonist thinks that now that he has met her in person, it would not be right not to return the generous gesture she made. Because of that, he needs to find something good to give her and thinks about the tea leaves. Yang Chen goes to Yinong's house and rings the doorbell. The housekeeper comes out and greets him, asking him to come in. The protagonist says that he received a gift last night and did not have anything good to give in return. However, he had some tea at home and brought a little to share with them. Lan is surprised, wondering if that really is tea. Yinong appears on the balcony above and asks the protagonist to sit down. She tells Lan to bring that young man who came last time in and take care of him. Yang Chen apologizes for the disturbance. Lan explains why the protagonist is there and says that he just mentioned that he wanted to share some of his tea with the young lady, asking whether she should prepare some. Yinong says that it is fine and tells the housekeeper to boil the water. Yang Chen hands the tea to them and tells them to go ahead and try it because he cannot stay since he needs to get back to driving his car. Yinong is surprised and asks what kind of work he actually does. As he leaves the house, the protagonist says goodbye, saying that he is a ride-hailing driver, but now he has to go. Yinong is a little confused, asking whether that boy is really rich and how he has that house while being only a ride-hailing driver. Lan opens the bag and gets a little confused, asking her mistress whether she has ever seen that kind of tea before. Yinong says that she has never seen it and also cannot identify the aroma. She asks her housekeeper to take those leaves to old Hong so that he can take a look, because he will definitely know what kind of tea it is. Lan says that she will do that right away, but Yinong still keeps wondering how a ride-hailing driver can afford that house, which shows that that boy is an even more mysterious man than she expected. A short time later, the protagonist arrives to pick up his first passenger. Chiani looked stunning as always, and the protagonist asks if she was the one who ordered the ride. She says yes and asks how he ended up in such an ordinary car because, with his status, he should at least be driving a sports car or something like that. When she sits in the car, she asks the protagonist what he thinks, saying that she changed her look and asks whether her legs look better. Yang Chen gets a little irritated and asks if she can simply not talk because she is a 99 out of 100, but when she opens her mouth, she drops to 59 out of 100. He asks her to fasten her seatbelt because they are going to Mary Restaurant. While they are on the way, she says that she made a reservation at Queen Mary Restaurant and points out that she would like to invite him to dinner that night. But Yang Chen refuses the invitation, saying that he does not have time because he needs to drive his car. Besides, he asks whether it is entirely possible that she is trying to get him drunk so she can drag him to some hotel room and steal his kidneys. Chiani laughs and asks how she could possibly do that, because he is far too handsome to suffer any kind of harm. She points out that her father told her that the deal is done, and they will sign the contract tomorrow morning, and after that, the funds will be transferred to her family. And that is exactly why she really wants to invite him to dinner, to thank him for everything he did for her family. Yang Chen says that he is very happy about the gesture she is trying to make. However, there is no need for a dinner. Chiani gets confused, saying that she is a fair-skinned, beautiful girl with long legs, and asks how she can invite him to dinner, and he simply refuses. That makes her wonder whether he is really a man, or whether there is something wrong with his sexual orientation. Young Chen steps on the brake and says that they have already arrived at the destination and if she has nothing else to say, she can get out of the car. Chiani gets out of the car and keeps asking whether he really has no interest in women at all because she is seriously fed up with him being so strange. A little farther ahead, the protagonist arrives to pick up his second passenger. She was arguing with a man and shouts that she's already ready to go. But the man tries to stop her and asks if she really dares to get into the car because she is not going anywhere until she pays for the damages. The girl gets a little confused, saying that she had just passed by there, so she was not the one who hit his bicycle. She points out that she does not care if the bicycle fell because that has nothing to do with her. But the man says that the bicycle has been standing there for more than 10 minutes and did not fall a single time, and it just happened to fall the second she showed up. He asks who she thinks she is fooling because if she does not pay, she will face punishment. The protagonist interrupts the argument and suggests that the two of them go to the bakery next door and check the security camera at the entrance because it is pointed directly at that spot. The girl gets happy, saying that the driver is right, because if they do that, they will know exactly what happened as soon as they check the footage. The man looks at the protagonist's car and says that apparently he just bought that car because it still has temporary plates. Because of that, he suggests that the protagonist stay out of it, or he will have to make the protagonist experience what it is like to have a dent in his new car. Yang Chen asks the man whether he is really trying to extort money, and whether that is why he's afraid to check the surveillance footage. Besides, that man is over 1.80 meters tall, and he asks whether it is not a little low to scam a young girl like that. The man keeps getting more and more irritated and asks whether that is any of the protagonist's concern, because he should not go looking for trouble. Yang Chen explains that that young woman requested his car through the app, and if that ride does not end, he will not be able to pick up the next one. So either the man lets her go now, or they go to the bakery next door to check the camera and see what really happened. The man grabs an iron rod and shouts again, saying that he already told him not to look for trouble, asking whether he really wants to gamble on whether his car will be smashed or not. Yang Chen simply steps aside and says that if the man can afford the damages, he can go right ahead because that will not be a problem. The man starts laughing, saying that it is only an ordinary sedan and his car is worth 2 of that protagonist's car, and there would still be enough left over to pay for gas. The man asks who the protagonist thinks he's talking to. Yang Chen says that if that really is true, then he can go over to the car and smash it, and asks why he is only talking and not hitting it already. The man gets ready to strike, asking whether the protagonist really does not believe he can do it. The girl tries to stop him, saying that he should not drag another person into that argument. But Yang Chen takes the girl's hand and pulls her into his arms, saying that she should not interfere because he already sent a few guys to prison, so he does not mind sending one more. The girl blushes a little and apologizes, saying that she caused a bit of trouble. Yang Chen tells her not to worry because she can look at this occasion as a way of ridding the world of a plague. He keeps provoking the man, asking if he has eaten and whether he needs some borrowed muscles to get the job done. The man walks over to the car, saying that if he does not smash that car today, he will not even be able to look at himself in the mirror. However, before hitting the car, he notices something and becomes surprised, thinking that he needs to be grateful for having such a sharp eye and seeing those letters. Otherwise, if he had hit the car, he would have lost more than 100,000. The protagonist is surprised and asks what he is looking at, telling him to hit the car. But the man drops the rod and starts changing his attitude, calling the protagonist friend and saying that this was only a misunderstanding, because apparently the wind knocked the shared bicycle over onto his car and that has nothing to do with that young lady. So she can get in the car and leave, and he really would like to apologize for all of that. But the protagonist remains confused, asking what is wrong, because that guy said he would not be able to look at himself in the mirror if he did not smash that car. The man keeps smiling, saying that this is all his fault, and asks the young lady and the protagonist to get in the car, because they cannot stay there wasting too much time, since time is very precious. Yang Chen ends up agreeing with the man and asks the young lady to get into the car. As soon as they get into the car, she thanks the protagonist once again, saying that if it were not for him, she would have been in serious trouble. Yang Chen asks her not to mention it because it is all a matter of fate, since if she had not called his car, then he would have had no way to help her. The girl, still confused, asks why that idiot, who had been acting so arrogantly, suddenly became so polite to the protagonist. Yang Chen laughs and says that he does not know the reason, and that maybe it is because his conscience finally kicked in. A little later, they arrive at the destination, and the girl, very happy, asks what she should call the protagonist, saying that her name is Zhao Yun. The protagonist tells her not to worry about his name and asks her to go enjoy herself with her classmates. She says that if that is the case, then they can add each other on WeChat, and next time she needs a ride, she can contact him directly. The protagonist agrees to that and adds her. Right after that, he drives away in his car. He thinks that he is a little hungry now and needs to go eat something. He goes to a restaurant and calls the waitress over, saying that he would like to place an order. As soon as he sits down at the table, he receives a message and wonders whether that girl is trying to play with him. He asks the waitress to check the situation in private room 302 because he has a classmate who went in there and still has not come out. As soon as he looks to the side, he sees Hungji and two girls carrying Zhao Yun. So he thinks that the world is really small, and apparently the distress message she sent was not a joke. Zhao Yun was asking the two women to let her go because she wanted to go back to her dormitory. The girls say that they already know that, which is why they are taking her back to her dormitory. The protagonist kicks one of the benches, which goes flying toward Hungji. He gets irritated, saying that this is quite a coincidence, because he did not expect to run into the protagonist there. Yang Chen says that Hungji's father really is quite impressive, because he managed to get him out of jail very quickly. Hengji says that they had better stop playing games because such a small matter cannot do anything to him. He tells the protagonist to disappear because he is not in the mood to play right now and calls the girls to leave, but the protagonist tells him to stop right there. Yang Chen says that those two are probably excellent roommates, since they are planning to get that girl drunk and then throw her onto a man's bed. The girl tells the protagonist to stop talking nonsense and says that they are just a couple arguing after drinking, and asks what it has to do with him. Yang Chen shows the message he received, saying that if this is just a couple's quarrel, then why did Zhao Yun send him a message asking for help? The two girls are surprised, and Hungji tries to smooth things over, saying that he and Zhao Yun are dating, and tells the protagonist to stop inventing lies about crimes because he is already losing his patience. Yang Chen says that if that is the case, then there is no problem with him calling the police and letting doctors check whether that girl was drugged in some way. Hungji gets even more irritated and says that the protagonist is doing that on purpose, and now they are official enemies. He runs off, saying that the protagonist only needs to wait because he will end up in a world of misery. The two girls who were carrying Zhao Yun get scared and throw her aside, saying that it has nothing to do with them. Yang Chen catches her in his arms and starts calling her name. She, slightly drugged, asks the protagonist to take her away. Yang Chen asks the waitress to open a private room for him. The protagonist takes her into the room and lays her down on the sofa. She thanks him, saying that she was saved. Yang Chen asks what exactly happened between them. She says that her roommates, Wang Lan and Zhang Yafei, told her that they wanted to invite her to dinner. But when she got to the room and realized that Hung Ji was there too, she was about to leave, but he told her to drink a little juice first. As soon as she drank it, she started feeling dizzy and realized that something was wrong. The protagonist says that it is obvious the juice was tampered with and asks what she wants to do now. Zhao Yun shouts that the situation has already gone too far, and because of that, she cannot forgive it and wants to call the police. The protagonist agrees, saying that they cannot let criminals escape unpunished. A little while later, the police car arrives and Zhao Yun gets into it. Yang Chen thinks that this time, that idiot Hungji will be in real trouble. A little later, when he returns home, housekeeper Lan is standing there waiting for the protagonist. He gets out of the car and asks what she's doing there. Lan laughs and says that he finally came back, and explains that her young lady would like to invite him for a cup of tea, and asks whether that would be convenient. Yang Chen thanks her once again for the kindness and the invitation, but says that he is very tired and would like to rest a little earlier. However, he points out that he will be free tomorrow evening, and hopes that both she and her young lady can join him for dinner at his house. Lan agrees and says that she will prepare some dishes to bring to his house, and asks him to get some rest because she will not bother him anymore. As soon as Lan returns to her house, Yunong asks her what happened and whether she did not invite the protagonist. The housekeeper apologizes and says that he was very tired and wanted to go to sleep a little earlier. However, the protagonist invited the two of them to dinner tomorrow night. Yunong says that this was already expected because that boy is not an ordinary person, and everyone in the neighborhood is dying to visit her every day. But the protagonist is the only one she cannot even visit, and that makes her like the situation even more. So tomorrow night, she will find a chance to investigate that boy's true identity a little more. Meanwhile, at the protagonist's house, his phone rings. Zhao Yun explains that the police said that it was done by her roommate, Wang Lan, and since it did not cause any substantial harm, they only gave her a disciplinary warning. However, she points out that Hung Ji was clearly the mastermind, so she is frustrated that he managed to get away without punishment. The protagonist points out that this was already expected because there is not enough evidence. However, she needs to be careful from now on, and he himself will figure out a way to deal with that scoundrel. The next day, the protagonist picks up a couple again. As soon as they get into the car, he asks both of them to fasten their seatbelts. The man takes off his shoe and the smell is unbearable. The protagonist asks him to put his shoes on properly and stay safe, but the man says that he is exhausted and would like to sleep a little. It is just a shared ride, and asks since when there were rules like that. Yang Chen remains firm and says that if he does not want to put his shoes back on, then he must get out of the car immediately. The man gets a little upset about that and says that the protagonist is very bad at customer service, so he will receive a negative review. The woman sitting in the back seat also gets irritated, saying that the protagonist is deliberately looking for trouble because even if there is a smell, he could simply ignore it. A service worker complaining about a customer's stench. Is that some kind of joke? Yang Chen says that he is a ride-hailing driver, not a foot masseur, so he has no obligation to tolerate a bad smell. And the posture that guy is in is extremely dangerous. Either he puts on his shoes and they continue the trip to the destination, or they will get out now and call another car to go. The man continues acting arrogantly, placing his foot on the car's dashboard and asking what all the fuss is about because he is not getting out of the car, and if the protagonist is not going to drive, then they will wait there. Yang Chen gets out of the car and opens the passenger door, throwing the man out of the car. The woman screams that it is attempted murder and cries for help. Some people start approaching the car. The woman hugs the man and cries for help, saying that that driver is cursed and yanked her boyfriend's shoes off and threw him out while grabbing his throat. She asks everyone to judge the matter there, asking whether that is really how a ride-hailing driver should act. Yang Chen says that there is no problem because they can let everyone judge the case. Some people begin to smell the unpleasant odor, while the protagonist explains that that guy took off his shoes and stretched out his feet. So he asked his passenger to wear his shoes for safety, and he refused, and that is why he made the passenger get out of the car. The people who were smelling that irritating odor say that that passenger has no manners, but ride-sharing has become very competitive since the protagonist is driving a luxury car for shared rides, which means that that guy is probably a young master experiencing the real world. The passenger, a little confused, hears the people saying that it is a luxury car and walks closer, asking what kind of luxury car that is, because it looks very ordinary. But as soon as he sees the letters HT, he is impressed. The girl walks up to her boyfriend and asks if that car is really worth that much. The man says that it is a luxury car worth millions, and that guy is a rich young master, probably from the second generation. They could have gotten into very serious trouble. The woman realizes that they really were messing with someone they should not have, and walks up to the protagonist, calling him handsome, saying that she was very sorry because she should have stopped her boyfriend a little earlier, and she asks what he thinks of the following suggestion, because to show her apology, she will let him treat her to a meal. Her boyfriend asks what that means. Yu says that she is going to invite the handsome guy to a meal and apologize to him while doing it. She asks her boyfriend to head back first because she will deal with the consequences there. The man gets irritated, asking if she is really going to do that. Yu continues acting firmly, asking if he is going to be annoying because she already told him to leave. Since he has been deliberately disobedient ever since he was a child, and that is very annoying, she does not want to get angry right there. Yu had called that man her brother, and the protagonist walks up to her saying that if the two of them really are siblings, she could pull that shoe out of the car. Yu laughs and says that there is no problem because she will take those stinky shoes out of there right now. She throws the shoes outside and gets into the car, saying that she is inviting him to dinner. Yang Chen gets into the car politely and thanks her for the kindness she is showing, but says that his rear camera was a little blurry and asks if she could get out and wipe the lens for him. Yu says yes because she will do that right away, but as soon as she gets out of the car, the protagonist accelerates. She screams, saying that her bag is still inside the car, but he simply throws the bag outside. The man sees that and starts laughing, asking if that is very embarrassing because she tried to hook a rich second-generation guy just so he would not get mad at her, and the moment things became critical, he suddenly became her younger brother. Yu slaps the man across the face, calling him a bastard and asking whether he is really human. Irritated, she says that it is fine if other people do not understand what she does, but he is going too far and asks whether he does not recognize her and why she had to do that. The man says that he does not know and asks why she did that. She points out that he had been very arrogant in the car earlier and clearly offended that boy, and she knows very well that the protagonist is not interested in her, so she had to cling to him because he would definitely get anxious and try to run away. And now that idiot with clown hair is there mocking her. The man tries to comfort her, saying that he would like to apologize because it was all his fault for misunderstanding. Yu says that if he really wants to make it up to her, then he needs to leave a negative review and file a complaint. The man says that it is fine and that he will leave a negative review and call right now to file a complaint. Meanwhile, at a car wash, the protagonist was cleaning his car and notices that he received a new negative review and a passenger complaint. The system woman appears again, congratulating him and saying that he received a new negative review and the system reward is 32% of the net assets of Baoking Restaurant and another $5 million in cash. And now he is the company's second largest shareholder. He needs to visit the restaurant's main branch tomorrow to receive the capital transfer agreement. The protagonist is very happy about that, saying that that system is truly amazing, and the rewards are more than enough to make up for the trauma of smelling those stinky feet. He receives a message saying that he needs to go to Baoking Restaurant tomorrow at noon. He looks at the message and says that this is a huge coincidence because he was thinking about not going, but now he has no choice because he needs to be there. As soon as he arrives at his house, two chefs were waiting outside. He gets out of the car and asks what that means. One of the chefs asks if he is Mr. Yang Chen. He explains that they were sent there by Miss Yinong to wait for his return because Tonight they will prepare a sumptuous dinner for him and the young lady. He asks the two of them to move the utensils and ingredients into the kitchen. As soon as the two enter the kitchen, they are impressed, seeing that the plates and bowls are very beautiful and expensive and are probably antiques. Even the kitchen knife is of high quality, and they say that a single knife like that costs 600,000. The chef tells them to be careful and not fool around so they do not cause any damage in the house. Because those dishes do not look ordinary, and if any of them get chipped or damaged, the consequences will be unimaginable. Therefore, everyone must stay on maximum alert. Everyone says that they understand. One of the cooks tells his friend that anyone who can make the young lady care that much is definitely not an ordinary person. The other says that he is almost afraid to touch that gold-plated faucet, because if he scrapes off a tiny bit of gold dust, the boss will blame him for it. The protagonist opens the kitchen door and asks the chefs if they need anything else, because he can go buy it immediately. The head chef says that they do not need anything because the house is even better equipped than the kitchen where they work, so they have absolutely everything there. The chef asks the protagonist to go back to the dining room and wait a little, because they need to finish preparing the food. Yang-chen says that it is fine and apologizes for bothering them, but as soon as the protagonist leaves, he hears someone knocking on the door. As soon as he answers, he sees that it is Yinong and Lan. He welcomes them to his humble home and says that Yinong's presence makes his humble house shine with a little more life. Yinong smiles and says that it is an honor to be invited into his house. As soon as they enter, the protagonist says that he had assumed Lan would come over to make a few simple homemade dishes because he did not expect Miss Yinong to be so meticulous and bring her own chefs to cook. Yinong says that those are the chefs from her hotel, and she just borrowed them for a day, so he does not need to mind it because they often come to cook for her anyway. Yinong looks at the works of art on the wall and thinks that if all of that is genuine, it means that each painting or piece of calligraphy is worth anywhere from several million to tens of millions, and someone capable of such extravagance must come from a family with unimaginable wealth. Yang Chen pours some wine and asks Yinong to sit at the table. As soon as she sits down at the table, she asks the protagonist what he usually likes to eat, because she hopes those dishes are to his liking. Yang Chen says that, to be honest with her, he ate very well when he was a child, but later that changed. And to be fair, since he graduated from college, that is the best meal he has eaten. Yinong thinks that apparently the protagonist really does seem to be a wealthy second-generation heir from a mysterious family, which means that he grew up living in luxury but had to eat poorly when he started his training. Yinong asks what kind of car he likes because, given his status, he would at least drive a supercar. Yang Chen points out that he definitely loves sports cars, but his current situation does not allow him to drive sports cars, so maybe he needs to wait a little longer before he can do that. Yinong is surprised and thinks that there is no doubt about it. It is exactly like it is written in novels. He is currently in family training. When the 3 years are over, he will go home to inherit the entire family fortune. She tastes some of the meat and asks him to try it too, because it is delicious. The protagonist tastes a piece and says that it is crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, and truly delicious. An hour later, they finish dinner. Yinong says that now that they are full, they could take a walk to help with digestion. The protagonist agrees and they begin walking down the street. Hongji appears once again and shouts at the protagonist, calling him a thief, saying that his luck is terrible. Once again, together with some people, he points out that he thought the protagonist might be driving and did not imagine that he would go out like that. Yinong asks who they are and wonders whether they do not know who the protagonist is. Hongji says that that woman is a stunning beauty and asks her to listen carefully, saying that his father is Zhang Yawu, president of the Yawu group, and what he has to settle there is a personal grudge between him and that boy, so she does not need to get involved. Therefore, she had better stay out of that conversation. Yinong thinks that Hongji is a complete idiot and blind because he did not realize that the protagonist is the young master of a hidden family, and this is a perfect opportunity for her to do him a favor. She tells Hongji to stop talking nonsense and not interfere with her walk with Mr. Yang. Hongji points the baton at her and says that he will say this only one more time. Out of respect for her beauty, he does not want to hurt her, but if she is going to be that ungrateful, he does not mind taking her along with the protagonist. Yang Chen steps in front, saying that Hongji smashed his car and came after him to find him. But even if that had not happened, the protagonist would have gone after him anyway. Yang Chen points out that Hongji is acting very arrogantly, but all he really relies on is the Yawu group. If that company went bankrupt, he would have nothing to lean on. Hongji laughs and says that the protagonist is absolutely right, because he is relying on the fact that his father is the president of that group. And he asks who gave him so much confidence that he would curse the company right to his face. He orders his friends to grab the protagonist and beat him until he turns into pulp, and they cannot stop until he gives in. The boys begin running toward the protagonist, but Yang Chen finishes all of them off quickly without taking a single hit. Yinong is even more impressed, seeing that the protagonist is a wealthy, successful, handsome young man, a good fighter and protective, a true man. Yang Chen slowly walks toward Hengji, who starts trembling, telling him to stay back and asking what he is doing, because he is already warning him that if the protagonist dares to do anything to him, his father will not let him get away with it. Yang Chen slaps Hengji across the face and shouts, asking if he really thinks he's in any position to threaten him. Hengji starts crying and says that the protagonist is finished, because while he was growing up, not even his own father dared to hit him in the face. And on the other hand, the protagonist dared to touch his face. And now he is dead, because no one can save him. Yang Chen laughs and asks if that is really going to happen, and slaps him across the face again. Hengji begs the protagonist to stop hitting him, crying, and says that if he gets beaten to death, he will be finished. He kneels and begs for his life. Yang Chen tells him to get as far away as he can, because he does not want to see his face anymore. Hengji's friends grab him and run away from there. Yinong smiles and says that she never expected the protagonist to be such a skilled martial artist. She asks if she could ask who his master is because she would love to visit him someday. Yang Chen thinks that he definitely cannot tell her that his skills came from a system. He smiles and says that it has been a very long time since he last saw his master, and he happened to mention that he was traveling, so he has not been able to get in touch with him since then. Yinong says that is a pity because if it is meant to be, she is sure the two of them will meet again. Besides, she would like to know how he intends to deal with the Yawu group. Yang Chen points out that he still cannot deal with them, but he believes it will not take long before he can teach those idiots a lesson. Yinong thinks that this probably means he is still in the middle of his training and has to wait until everything is over before he can use his family's influence to crush that mediocre group. If that is the case, then why not take that opportunity to do the protagonist a favor? Yinong smiles and says that the two of them had a wonderful conversation and dinner, and offers to take care of the Yawu group for him. Then he can consider it a gift for a friend, and she asks what he thinks about that situation. Yang Chen is surprised, but happy, saying that that will work as well, and assures her that it will not take long before he can repay this favor. Yinong laughs and says that there is no need to be so polite with her. Since they are friends, it is only fair that they can help each other. She points out that soon he will have the news of that group's collapse on his desk. Yang Chen says that it is very good to hear that and points out that he has just acquired 32% of the capital of Bao King Restaurant, and if she is free tomorrow, he would like to invite her to another meal. Yinong says that sounds very good and agrees, saying that she will have lunch with him tomorrow. Since it is getting very late, he should go back and get some rest. A little later, as soon as she enters her house, the housekeeper places her shoes on the floor. Lan asks if the conversation was fruitful. Yinong points out that now she is almost certain that that young man is a young master from an ancient martial arts family. She points out that the housekeeper did not see it, but he took down 12 people by himself in just 1 minute. In addition, there is one more thing. She orders the housekeeper to send a message immediately to investigate the dirt of the Yawu group. That way, they will find out all the institutions that invested in them. She states that the goal is to bankrupt the Yawu group as quickly as possible. The housekeeper says that she understands and will take care of it immediately. The next day at the restaurant, Jiankun asks Lixin if she is rushing the protagonist, because all their classmates are there, and asks why he still has not shown up. Lixin says that she already sent him several messages, but he did not respond and is not answering her calls either. Jiankun points out that if he does not show up, then he will not pay the bill because they can just tell their classmates to split it. Lixin asks what he is talking about and wonders if he is backing out. A girl and a boy ask them what is going on and whether they are fighting. Lixin explains that her boyfriend said he would host, but the protagonist did not show up, and they have something urgent to deal with, so they need to leave. The young man with glasses tells her that doing something like that is really unnecessary. She tricked all of them into coming there under the pretense of being the host, and now she is leaving. He asks if she is trying to make fools of all of them. The girl says that no one forced her or her boyfriend to host them, but since she offered, she should at least keep her word. Otherwise, why were they invited? And she asks whether she is in some kind of financial trouble. Lixin starts hitting her boyfriend, shouting at him, saying that it is all his fault because he really had to drive everyone away until she was left alone. Jiankun tells her to stop and says that all those people are her classmates, not his, so why should he pay the bill for everyone? Other young people ask them to stop arguing because that is enough already, and point out that Jiankun is absolutely right. They point out that in fact they are not classmates, so he should not have attended that gathering anyway. And if he cannot pay, then forget it, because they are not short on money and 1 meal is not a problem. Jiankun gets irritated and takes money into his hand, saying that it is not as if he cannot pay, and he explains that they are not his classmates, so there is no reason for him to pay for everyone. Lixin keeps crying and tells her boyfriend that she wants to break up and does not want to see him again, telling him to get out of there. Jiankun says that is fine, but he does not want her crawling back afterward. The other man says that it is fine and asks people not to let that guy ruin the mood and asks them to go back to eating. He tells the woman that even by splitting the bill, he can guarantee that she will not regret it. because the food at that restaurant called Baoking is excellent. The woman says that it really all looks very good, but it is so expensive that after that meal, she will have to eat dirt for an entire month. The young man with glasses asks Lixin whether she already ordered the food and whether she could say roughly how much it will cost. She points out that it is around 8,000 or more. The young man with glasses almost chokes to death, saying that at this rate, he will not be eating dirt because he will not even be able to pay his phone bill. He points out that she needs to lend him some money because she caused all that mess, so it is not fair for her not to help anyone. Lixin gets a little embarrassed, saying that she also does not have any money because she is currently unemployed and that is her last meal. The man who had tried extortion laughs, asking whether they are really fighting over a mere 600 yuan per person, because if they really cannot pay that, he can lend them the money. And he points out that they need to pay him back as soon as they receive their next salary. The young man with glasses gets a little happier and tells Lixin that a man like Tao is much more reliable than that idiot named Jiankun. Suddenly, the protagonist walks in and apologizes to everyone. Because traffic was bad and he is a little late, Tao stands up and asks the protagonist if he has any idea what happened there, because since he was late, he did not see that Lixin and her boyfriend argued and ended up breaking up. A woman greets the protagonist and asks him to sit beside her because there is an empty seat. He thanks her very much because she was the class monitor they had back in school. The woman laughs, saying that there is no need to thank her, and asks him to try some because most of the food is already gone and everyone is there, so they can talk more deeply. Lixin asks how the protagonist could bear to leave her there back then and asks whether he does not owe her some explanation. Yang Chen picks up a glass of wine and says that everyone heard that recording and asks her why she is not wondering whether she owes him an explanation instead. Tao tells the protagonist not to be so angry because she probably just felt wronged and is venting. He points out that he already paid for that meal, so he does not need to pay. However, since he is there, he could show some courtesy and order a bottle of wine for everyone. But the class monitor says that if they want to drink, then they can buy it themselves, because that is the fairest thing. Tao tells the waitress to bring a good bottle of wine. She brings the bottle, and the young man with glasses is impressed, saying that he is a legend because he is treating everyone to a wine that costs more than 100,000 per bottle. In addition, he points out that someone like the protagonist could not pay for that, so why did he order such an expensive bottle? The red-haired woman asks the waitress whether she is sure about that and whether that wine can really be that expensive. She says that, in fact, those two bottles really are as expensive as the ones in the movies. They cost only 128,000 each. Tao gets a little confused and tells the waitress that none of them ordered that wine and asks why she is serving it to them. The waitress tells Lixin that, actually, her boyfriend ordered those two bottles before he left. Lixin says that she broke up with her boyfriend and will not pay for the wine he ordered. Tao thinks that nearly 260,000 for just two bottles of wine is far too expensive, and Lixin is not worth that much money. Yuan says that breaking up with her boyfriend is a private matter between her and her ex-boyfriend. However, the two of them went there and reserved that private room together, and they were the ones who decided on the menu. Trying to refuse now is not appropriate. The protagonist asks them to stop arguing and says that he will pay for the wine. The class instructor tells him to stop playing the hero and asks how many rides he would need to drive to make enough to pay for something that expensive. She asks the waitress to take the wine back because they do not want that wine anymore, and since she is in the room, she could speak with the manager to cancel it. Yuan explains that once the wine leaves the cabinet, it cannot be returned, and talking to the manager is useless. 2 minutes later, Zhu Chao, the restaurant manager, walks in angrily, asking what is going on there and who wants to return the wine. But as soon as he sees the protagonist, he thinks that he is the new shareholder who was mentioned in the company notice that morning. He quickly changes his attitude and calls Yang Chen sir, asking whether he is satisfied with the chef's craftsmanship. Everyone is stunned, and Lixin asks what is going on there and why the manager is being so polite to the protagonist. Yang Chen tells the manager that everything is going well, although the food is a little cold and the texture is not that pleasant. Xu Chao asks Yuan to go to the kitchen and tell them to fry a fresh batch immediately and bring 2 more bottles of that wine because they must make sure the protagonist is well taken care of. The class instructor becomes worried, saying that the manager has opened too many bottles and they have no way to pay that bill. Xu Chao laughs and says that the young lady must be joking and says that they cannot charge the bill when the protagonist is dining there because Yang Chen's presence in that place is the greatest honor they could ask for, so they are very happy to be able to serve him. Yang Chen tells the manager that he cannot say that because Tao had said that he was the one hosting everyone there, so he still needs to pay for the original meal. He asks the manager to forget the money for the wine because he will take care of everything and says that this is enough already, asking the manager to go back to what he was doing. Xu Chao says that he understands and points out that he truly hopes he can enjoy that meal very much. As soon as the manager leaves, everyone keeps staring at him, and the protagonist asks why they are staring since he is not that handsome and tells them to hurry up and eat. The class instructor asks the protagonist why the manager of Baoking restaurant is being so polite to him. The red-haired woman agrees, saying that it is as if the protagonist were his boss and he were just waiting for his orders, and asks what is going on. Yang Chen says that he thought Baoking Restaurant had good prospects for the future, so he decided to buy shares. So it is natural for the manager to be polite to a shareholder. Tao stands up, confused, saying that Yang Chen drives a ride-hailing car, so how could he possibly have enough money to buy so many shares, enough to make the manager treat him like a king? Yang Chen laughs and says that he simply has a good father, and that this is the money he may have left behind. The young man with glasses asks if the protagonist really is a rich, second-generation heir and why he is driving a ride-hailing car. Because he could simply take that money and buy real estate and live off the rent. And that would be something a little more comfortable. Lixin realizes what she had done and tells the protagonist that she is truly sorry and was very ignorant before and asks him not to use this influence against her. Yang Chen smiles and tells her not to act like that because he prefers when she and her boyfriend were mocking him, because she was so full of herself back then just for dating a manager. She keeps crying and apologizes, saying that she was really wrong, so she is apologizing to him, and asks him not to be angry with her. Suddenly, they hear a noise from outside and the manager opens the door with Yankun all beaten up, telling the protagonist that someone brought some thugs to come after him. As soon as Yankun sees the protagonist, he speaks to him rudely and asks what kind of relationship the two of them have. Xu Chao slaps Jiankun again, asking if he is blind and questioning how he dares bring people to the restaurant to attack the company's second-largest shareholder. Jiankun thinks that the protagonist really is the second-largest shareholder. Now it is all over, and this time he has really hit a wall. He begs Lixin to ask the protagonist to forgive him and keep him out of danger, or they will beat him to death. Lixin says that all of this is his own fault because if he had not insisted on setting that banquet trap, she would not be in such a miserable situation. Yang Chen looks at the time and thinks that it is already 12:30, and he should go meet Yineng. He stands up and asks the manager to deal with it however he sees fit because he has other commitments and needs to leave now. Xu Chao says that he understands and asks the boss to go without worry because he will handle it properly. Yang Chen says goodbye to all his classmates, telling them to enjoy the meal because, besides the portion Tao is paying for, all the wine and extra food are on him. However, he has other commitments and needs to go, but if he can finish earlier, he will come back to keep everyone company. Xu Chao says that all of them are the protagonist's classmates, so they will be treated as VIPs there. He asks them to continue with the meal because he will not disturb them again. As soon as everything calms down, they stand there for a moment, and the class instructor says that it is fine, and they need to stop staring at the food and eat it while it is hot, because it is rare for their class to produce someone so rich, and everyone should be happy for the protagonist. The red-haired woman says that she never expected Yang Chen to be so rich, and she truly underestimated him. Lixin thinks that if she had known the protagonist's family was that rich, she should not have given up on him even if he had treated her like a dog back then. And now she needs to find a way to win him back, because she was born to be a rich housewife, and no one can stop that. A little later, he arrives at room 318, and when he opens the door, he finds her all dressed up. He points out that she really is stunning. Yineng points out that this is the first time she is going out with the protagonist, so she needs to take it seriously. Yang Chen says that hearing her say that makes him a little embarrassed, because he wore casual clothes since he was driving, and did not have time to go home and dress properly. But Yineng looks at him and says that he has a strong body and a handsome face, and even without dressing well, he is still a unique person. One of the chefs approaches and asks the protagonist whether they should serve the meal, and he tells them to go ahead. As soon as the meal is placed, Yineng is impressed, thinking that she did not expect the young lady to take it so seriously, because that meal costs more than 300,000. Suddenly his phone rings, and as soon as he looks, he sees that it is a message from Lixin, telling him to feel free to choose whatever he wants, because she will do her best to satisfy him, and they could watch a movie that night. He replies a little surprised, and she thinks that if he is willing to reply to her, then that means she still has a small chance. She points out that she already knew she was born to be the lady of a rich house. The next day, inside his house, his phone rings once again. The person tells him that they already bought all the office equipment from Jingyan Advertising Company and obtained the new business license, so he is ready to begin operations. Yang Chen says that he did a great job and that he will call Xiaoli right away. As soon as he calls her, he says that the company is fully set up and asks her to go ahead and notify everyone to come back to work. In addition, he says that the company has been renamed Chenguang Advertising Company and is no longer Jingyan Advertising Company. Xiaoli says that she understands and will notify everyone to return to the office right away. The protagonist walks to the window and says that the weather is great. Now it is time for him to go out and drive a little. A short time later, he stops to pick up his first customer, and she complains, asking why he is so late. Yang Chen apologizes, saying that when he accepted her request, he was 1.5 kilometers away and had to circle around an elevated highway exit, so it took a little longer. The woman gets into the car and asks if he has any idea how much of a hurry she is in, because her bullet train leaves in half an hour, and if she misses her train, Is the protagonist going to reimburse her for the ticket? Yang Chen looks at his phone and says that in half an hour there is no way he can make it because the railway station is huge, and even if he drops her off there, it will still take her several minutes just to run inside, so she should reschedule the ticket. The woman, completely irritated, says that this is impossible because her neighbor told her that her husband brought another woman home, so she needs to go back immediately. She tells him to stop barking and drive as fast as he can. Yang Chen says that if she was in such a hurry to catch a train, she should have booked a ride earlier and asks why she cannot call the train station and ask them to wait for her. The woman thinks that actually makes a little sense, because after she bought a ticket and failed to arrive on time, they could not simply leave without her. She contacts them saying that her train departs in 5 minutes and asks whether they could tell the train driver not to leave before she gets there. She points out that she will be there soon, at most in 10 minutes. The protagonist thinks it is very strange that she really called them, and the woman becomes even more irritated because they hung up on her. And what kind of attitude is that? While he is driving, the woman keeps complaining, saying that she paid money to board and she has not even boarded yet. So what right do they have not to wait for her? Yang Chen tries to calm her down, telling her not to be so nervous, because she can get out at the drop-off point ahead. As soon as he stops at the train station drop-off point, he asks her to take her belongings and thanks her for choosing to travel with him. However, the woman is still angry, asking who would ever want to ride with him again because he ruined her business, and she will never hire his service again. Yang Chen thinks that when the forest is big enough, he gets to see all kinds of birds. He receives a message from Zhao Yun asking if he could pick her up because she has some things to tell him, would really like to know his opinion, and also needs help with some matters. The protagonist starts his car and heads there quickly, asking her to send the location because he will be there soon. A short time later, he arrives at the point she sent, but is notified that he has received a new negative review. He thinks that he drove through the streets as if he were on a highway, and that idiot is still unhappy because she left too late and is now blaming him. But the system woman appears, saying that he received another negative review and his reward was a sports car. With that, the master will never again be looked down on for being slow. Yang Chen is happy, saying that this is incredible, and that with this, he will be one of the fastest ride-sharing drivers out there. He puts his hand in his pocket and notices that the other key was there. He points out that this is a little strange because last time, it specifically mentioned where the car was. But this time, there was no reminder about where to find the car. Some people around him say that that car is very beautiful and that if she were a little prettier, she would go rub herself against it. The other woman tells her friend not to worry because only someone on the level of a campus beauty could match that car. The protagonist thinks that that sports car is a Bugatti. A man tells the protagonist whether he thought that car was beautiful and says that it is definitely a 45 million car. So the protagonist thinks this actually makes sense and that maybe that car was meant for him, since the license plate seems like it was made just for him. Suddenly, someone calls out to young Master Lin and tells him to get ready because she is already coming. He walks up to the protagonist and hugs him, saying that fate brought them together there and says that he will pay him $100 to help hold a sign. He tells another person that he needs a few more people there and calls the others over. He takes a briefcase full of money and starts showing the money, but the protagonist says that young Master Lin is exaggerating because he is offering him money without even asking whether he is willing to do it. So that is unnecessary. Lin says that if that is not enough, he can give him something more later. Another man tells the protagonist to make an effort and says, please, because he would really like to earn that money. The protagonist eventually agrees to help the others and holds a sign that says, Zhao Yun, I like you. Lin picks up a giant bouquet of flowers and stands in front, waiting for her to come out. The woman who is with Zhao Yun says that she already told her not to come out through the front door, because that group is there again, so they can go back inside and call that private driver to pick her up through the back doors. But Zhao Yun simply ignores what the woman was saying and runs to the front. The woman asks how she dares walk out like that and questions whether she is not walking straight into the lion's den. She points out that young master Lin Nanyu put on a huge display, and if she dares reject him publicly, he will definitely become aggressive. Nanyu thinks that that bastard Hung Ji used despicable methods to chase that girl, and if he had invested a little more money as soon as he heard about that investigation, everything would be fine now. The protagonist asks the young master if he is sure that girl will like that kind of display. Nanyu looks at him and says that apparently he does not understand, because there is not a girl in this world who can resist a man who drives a sports car. Zhao Yun simply ignores Nanyu and goes straight to the protagonist, asking why he is helping with that nonsense. The protagonist says that that guy gave him a few $100s to help hold that sign and he thought that would pay better than driving, so he stayed there. But he asked Zhao Yun not to talk to him now because that boy is confessing his feelings to her and she should talk to him. Nanyu, a little confused, asks if she already rode with him once, so they know each other. Nanyu looks down on the protagonist, saying that he is just a ride-hailing driver and kneels in front of her, saying that he has liked her for a long time and because of that wants her to be his girlfriend. Zhao Yun asks him to stop doing that, because they saw each other for the first time last week and now he says he likes her, which means his affection is really cheap. She asks whether he thinks she would believe him and says that she already told him to stop wasting time doing that because she wants nothing to do with him. Nanyu cannot believe it and asks whether she is really rejecting him. She says that is exactly right and points out that she is rejecting him in front of everyone because she does not like people like him. Nanyu cannot understand and asks whether she really does not like him and wonders if she is joking. And he asks whether he is not handsome enough, rich enough, and on top of all that, good enough to her, so why she still cannot love him. He says that she is probably just too embarrassed to accept because there are many people around. But Zhao Yun gets irritated and shouts again, saying that she does not like him, and asks how he cannot get that through his head. She walks up to Yang Chen and simply kisses him. Nanyu gets nervous and asks what the two of them are doing, telling them to separate immediately. Zhao Yun, a little embarrassed, apologizes to the protagonist, saying that that was the first time she had ever kissed someone, so her technique was not very good and asks him to wipe himself a little. Yang Chen smiles, saying that her white peach-flavored lip balm is quite sweet. The woman who is with her asks what is going on and questions whether she is not being a little bold. But Zhao Yun, completely embarrassed, says that the mood was very good and she could not help herself. Nanyu gets even more irritated, asking whether the two of them are making him part of the atmosphere, turning him into background support. He asks once again what that means and whether she likes him, a poor guy who drives for a ride-hailing app. Yang Chen asks Nanyu to give up, because he cannot see any path to success for him, so he does not need to waste any more time. Besides, he points out that he needs to take her to dinner, so they will finish playing later. Nanyu tells the protagonist to keep dreaming with his ride-sharing job and not imagine things that do not belong to him. Nanyu asks if the protagonist knows why Wu Dalang was poisoned, and points out that it is because he possessed something that did not belong to him. Yang Chen asks whether he can take that as a threat. Nanyu says yes and points out that he is threatening the protagonist. A mere broke driver like him? What right does he have to compete for a woman? Because he is not worthy. Suddenly, the system says that it forgot to mention the sports car's license plate earlier. She says that the license plate of his new car is HI.YC520. The protagonist says that that system is really mischievous and asks why it did not notify him last time. Yang Chen looks at the car and asks why that license plate seems a little familiar and points out that he already knew he had seen that plate before. Nanyu laughs and tells him to stop staring because that car is worth more than 45 million. And even if the protagonist drove for a ride-sharing app for 10 more lifetimes, he still would not be able to buy something like that. Yang Chen laughs and asks the young master whether that car is his. Nanyu thinks that the real owner of the car is not around, so there is no problem pretending that he is the owner. He shoots back at the protagonist that this is obvious because if he were not the owner, then who would be? He tells the protagonist to get away immediately because he might accidentally scratch it, and 10 years of driving for a ride-sharing app would not be enough to pay the repair bill. And suddenly, the car starts up and the protagonist laughs, asking the young master how the car started after he did not see anyone take out the key. Nanyu gets worried and wants to figure out what is happening and thinks that maybe the owner might be nearby. Yang Chen keeps mocking the situation and asks the young master what he is looking for and whether it is possible that that is not really his car. Nanyu asks what that has to do with anything, because if the car is not his, it will not be the protagonist either. But the protagonist simply opens the car and gets in. Nanyu asks if Yang Chen is going crazy, questioning whether that is a car he can just sit in, because if he scratches that car, he will not have money to pay for it, even if he works for 10 years. Zhao Yun also gets worried and asks the protagonist to hurry up and get out of that car. The woman tries to pull Zhao Yun away, saying that if this protagonist does something stupid and does not have money to pay later, he might try to borrow money from her. But Zhao Yun runs to the car asking the protagonist to get out before the real owner appears, because if that happens, he could get into big trouble. Yang Chen simply smiles and asks if she would like to sit in the passenger seat because they could take a drive and then go to dinner. Nanyu remains confused, asking who the owner is and why they started the car but refuse to show their face. Yang Chen raises the key and asks the young master if he really still has not understood the situation. Nanyu says that that is impossible because the protagonist is just a ride-hailing driver, so how could he buy a sports car worth more than 45 million? Yang Chen looks at Zhao Yun, saying that he will call her only one more time, and if she does not get into the car, he will leave without her. Zhao Yun is still doubtful and asks whether that car really belongs to the protagonist. He tells her to look at the license plate, and as soon as she does, she sees that the initials on the plate are YC, which are the initials of Yang Chen. That shows that the license plate of that car was custom-made. Yang Chen tells her to stop asking because she already knows the answer and tells her to get in quickly because he prefers to keep a low profile since there are many people there and he does not want to make a scene. She runs to the car and gets in. Nanyu thinks that he spent the entire afternoon planning all of that only to end up as background scenery in the end. The person who is with Zhao Yun feels happy, saying that she is already riding in a multi-million-dollar sports car, and that even makes her a little jealous. Zhao Yun smiles, saying that she did not know the protagonist could be so rich while just driving a shared ride. She points out that if her friend wants so badly to ride in that car, she can go. Li Yun says that she will take a taxi and follow the two of them. Zhao Yun says that does not seem right, but Li Yun insists and pushes her into the car, telling the protagonist that she is her best friend and her name is Li Yun, and asks if he could take her first so she can feel what it is like to ride in that car because they will all meet for dinner because of her. Li Yun gets into the car and says that she could take a taxi if necessary, but the protagonist thinks that Zhao Yun is too naive because a few days ago she was targeted in a scheme by her roommates, and now she is treating another roommate as a best friend. Yang Chen presses the button and releases Li Yun's seatbelt, saying that the two of them can share the taxi and he will go straight to the restaurant branch and wait for them there. Li Yun is a little surprised, but says that it is fine and gets out of the car. Li Yun apologizes to Zhao Yun because she did not know it would be like that, and now she also cannot ride in the car. Nanyu starts mocking again, saying that the protagonist did not even put her in his eyes and told her to take a taxi to follow them, and asks what she will do now, calling her a gold digger. Zhao Yun asks what it matters whether she is a gold digger or not, because at least there is gold for her to dig. She asks whether it is worth mentioning the trash he did in front of that car. He is left speechless and she calls a taxi to leave. Nanyu keeps thinking that that car probably does not belong to the protagonist and that he might just be a designated driver. He calls his sister and asks her to check whether there is a person named Yang Chen in Haicheng who drives a sports car. She says that she checked the purchase records and there is no Yang Chen showing up there, because there are only 3 cars in the whole city, and none of them are under that name. Nanyu gets irritated, saying that he already knew it and that the initials on the car plate are actually Yu Cheng. His sister asks who that guy is and whether he did something to intimidate him. She points out that she is at the restaurant handling some business and asks where her brother is because she will meet him as soon as she is done. Nanyu says that is great because the protagonist went to the restaurant to eat as well and he is already heading there to meet him. As soon as Zhao Yun and her friend arrive at the restaurant, Nanyu is already outside saying that a poor taxi cannot keep up with his sports car and mocking her again, saying that she made that whole crawling gesture and still got no result. Zhao Yun sends a message to the protagonist, saying that they have already arrived and asking where he is. Nanyu asks if the protagonist did not tell her the private room number, and asks if she wants help finding him. Zhao Yun gets irritated, asking if he's not going to stop being so annoying, because she already rejected him in front of everyone. She points out that he is just a rich boy and acting like that is simply pathetic. Suddenly, a woman appears, saying that she has a very big mouth and would really like to see what kind of heavenly beauty dares to look down on her younger brother like that. She walks over, asking who is being so bold and how she dares reject her brother like that, wondering who gave her so much confidence to act so assured. Zhao Yun remains irritated and asks whether his sister could tell her if, besides relying on family money, that idiot has any other quality. She points out that the sister is also a woman and, deep down, would not choose someone like her brother as a partner, and asks her to answer. The sister thinks that she would not want that brat even as a brother, let alone as a partner. Nanyu interrupts the argument, telling his sister not to waste time with that girl, because first, they need to find the ride-hailing driver and finish him off, and after that, they will come back to settle accounts with her. The sister says that the car her brother mentioned is right there, but the person is nowhere to be found. Li Yun tells her friend that the protagonist disappeared and asks what they should do and whether it is possible that they were deceived. Zhao Yun points out that based on her impression of the protagonist, he cannot be a scammer. The sister keeps laughing, saying that someone like her is not only a gold digger, but also a complete idiot, because it would be no surprise if one day she were scammed and lost everything she has. Zhao Yun says that her body is hers and her money is also hers, and she can give them to whoever she wants, and it will not be to that filthy brother of hers. Nanyu says that apparently she does not know when to stop. Give her an inch and she runs a mile, and now she is going to get beaten and see if she can do anything. Suddenly, the protagonist's other car appears and she smiles, saying that he is there and would not deceive her. Nanyu starts laughing, saying that his ride is just an ordinary car, and that boy is good at putting on a show, and in fact, he is working as a designated driver and still managed to act lofty and powerful. As soon as the protagonist gets out of the car, he asks what they are doing there. Zhao Yun asked why he took so long because they were bullying her to death. Yang Chen explains that his ride-sharing car was parked a little far away, and when he saw that they were still not there, he went to get it. The protagonist looks at the young master and says that he is quite persistent, and he really followed them there, asking whether he cannot do anything without losing class. Nanyu asks whether the protagonist is going to keep up that charade and points out that his sister already identified that the sports car belongs to Yu Cheng and not to him. And, apparently, he has the nerve to pose with a client's car just to impress a girl. Yang Chen asks who this Yu Cheng is they are talking about. The sister tells the protagonist that he is working as both a ride-hailing driver and a designated driver, and it seems that he is really desperate for money. She orders him to apologize to her brother immediately, and that way she will let him leave safely and will even give him a job opportunity. Yang Chen laughs and tells her to forget it, because he does not want to work for someone with intentions as twisted as theirs, because she intentionally raised her own brother to be a loser, so that the family business would go to her instead of him. She gets irritated saying that that is not true, and asks the protagonist to stop sowing discord between the siblings. She orders the security guards to teach that boy a lesson, but another person arrives and tells them to stop that at once, because he would like to see who dares lay a finger on the protagonist. The man calls Yang Chen sir and asks if he is alright and whether he was hurt. Yang Chen says that he is fine but would like to know who that man is. Wang Yunhui introduces himself, saying that he is the manager of the restaurant lobby. The waiter from private room number 308 said that the protagonist had reserved dinner, so he came over to greet him. Nanyu and his sister were asking why the restaurant manager, such a prestigious man, was being so polite to the protagonist. Yunhui says that if Yang Chen had been hurt under his supervision, how would he explain that to his boss? The sister asks the manager who the protagonist is and why he is being so polite. Yunhui says that this is Mr. Yang, the newly appointed second-largest shareholder of the restaurant group, and she was just about to do something to him. Zhao Yun is impressed and asks if he really is the second-largest shareholder of that restaurant called Bao King. Then that means that sports car really is his. Yang Chen says yes and points out that with his status, he would not need to drive for someone else. Zhao Yun says that the initials on that plate clearly stand for the protagonist's initials, and since they insisted it belonged to some Yu Cheng, then they might as well say that it is a short way of calling the two of them stupid. The sister says that the manager is probably mistaken, because that boy is only a ride-hailing driver, so how could he possibly be the second-largest shareholder of the restaurant group? Yunhui asks if she really thinks everyone is as blind as she is and unable to see what is in front of them. He asks whether she thinks the true heirs of powerful families are all like that idiot brother of hers, doing absolutely nothing all day long. And apparently she should give up on speaking with Director Lee of the university because they are— Nanyu was furious about the situation, saying that his sister did not treat him like a brother and only cared about some agreement. She walked over to him and asked what he was muttering about by himself. Nanyu picked up a brick and headed toward the protagonist's car. His sister grew worried and told him to calm down and not act impulsively, because he could not win that fight. She ordered the guards to go over to her brother and take the brick out of his hand. Zhao Yun grew worried and told the protagonist that the guy was going to destroy his car, but the protagonist said it was fine. If Nanyu did that, he had the money to pay for everything he destroyed. But Nanyu walked right past it and began smashing his own car instead. His sister grew worried and asked what he was doing and why he had destroyed his own car. Nanyu shouted for the security guards to let him go and made a phone call saying that he was the legitimate heir of the Lin family and that from that moment on, he was saying goodbye to his free life and would focus completely on the family business. After that, he looked at his sister and thanked her for all the contributions she had made to the family over the years. Because of that, he promised never to mistreat her in the future. Yang Chen was happy with that change and applauded, saying that it looked like he had finally had a great awakening. Nanyu also apologized to the protagonist, saying that he hated him from the bottom of his heart, but still needed to thank him. And if he ever needed anything in the future, he only had to say the word because he owed him one. Yang Chen told him not to worry and said that if he ever needed anything one day, they could have that conversation later. His sister went over to the protagonist angrily, saying that he had ruined all her plans. Yang Chen pointed out that what she had just said made no sense at all because many people were watching. Because of that, he could prove that he had done absolutely nothing to ruin her. But he decided to let it go and called the two girls to go upstairs and have dinner. A short while later, inside the private room, Li Yun grew worried, saying that Nanyu had destroyed his own car and asked if it was possible that he might go crazy again and end up destroying the protagonist's car too. Yang Chen thought that was unlikely to happen, because if he had really wanted to destroy it, he would have done it right then and there. He noticed that Zhao Yun was not eating and asked if the food was not to her liking, because if she did not like it, she could just order anything else she wanted. That dinner was his gift to her, so she could eat and drink as much as she wanted. Zhao Yun explained that it was not exactly that, because the reason she had called him there was to talk about something else. The protagonist asked what it was and told her to explain. Zhao Yun explained that in the previous incident at the restaurant, 2 of her roommates had been detained, and their families and teachers hoped that she could give the 2 of them a second chance, but she did not know what to do. Li Yun told her friend that, from her point of view, that matter definitely had to be investigated because she had advised Zhao Yun many times, but she simply could not make up her mind. The protagonist told Zhao Yun that she should tell the 2 of them to confess that Hung Ji was the mastermind behind all of it, and then she would not hold them responsible. Otherwise, they would continue being pursued, because if she did not bring that guy to justice, he might keep trying to harass her in the future. Zhao Yun agreed, saying that she wanted that scumbag to go to prison too. However, her 2 roommates refused to testify against him, since his father was the head of the Yawu group, so they did not dare offend him. Yang Chen poured a glass of wine, saying that it did not matter, and simply asked her to do exactly what he had just said. She needed to make her condition very clear to them. That alone would already be considered kind enough to them. As for the Yawu group, there was no need for her to worry too much about them. They did not have much time left to live anyway. Zhao Yun became happy and convinced, saying that she would do exactly as the protagonist had told her. Yang Chen said that now that they had finished eating, they could go to the movies. Li Yun quickly became excited and agreed, saying that they really should do that. The protagonist looked at her and thought that she was a very needy person, because obviously he had only invited Zhao Yun out, but she kept shamelessly following the two of them. On the other hand, Li Yun noticed that the protagonist was looking at her and thought that he had just taken a peek at her, so maybe he had a crush on her. A short while later outside, the protagonist handed the key to the manager and asked him to arrange for a driver to take his sports car to the entrance of the villas by the riverbank and wait for him to return. The manager told the protagonist not to worry and said that he would personally take the car there and make sure everything was done safely. Yang Chen thanked the manager, saying that he was very satisfied with all the work he had shown that day. Because of that, when the protagonist met his boss, he would personally recommend him. The manager was delighted by the compliment and said that it was always a pleasure to help him. Meanwhile, in house number 8, Yineng was sitting down, drinking some tea and talking with her father. He asked if it was not too hasty to assume that the protagonist came from some powerful secret family just because he lived in house number 1. Yineng explained that she thought the protagonist must be trying to hide his identity. That was why he was keeping such a low profile. Her father said that they currently held 4.9% of the shares of the Yawu group and were only waiting for the IPO to cash out. However, he did not think it would be wise to crucify the Yawu group for an unknown young man. At least until they confirmed his identity, they had to act cautiously. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door and she told them to come in. Lan greeted the two of them and said that the protagonist had just come back and bought another sports car. Yineng was surprised and asked what brand the sports car was. Her housekeeper said that she had been too far away, so she had not been able to see clearly what brand it was. Yineng told her father to pay attention to how the protagonist spent money, as if there were no limits. So how could he possibly be an ordinary person? Because even if it were her, her father probably would not let her spend money like that. She had an idea and said that she would take a gift over to see what kind of sports car Yang Chen had bought. Because if it was worth millions, he was definitely an ultra-rich second-generation heir without a doubt. Her father agreed, saying that it was an excellent plan, and told her to go ahead with it. Meanwhile, inside his house, the protagonist was looking at the news on his phone and noticed that his passenger from the morning was being arrested, shouting that she had bought a train ticket, so they had taken her money, and therefore, they should provide a service. They should not leave with the train until she was inside it. The protagonist looked at that and said that anyone with a wife like that would be extremely impressive if he did not cheat on her or run away from something like that. Suddenly, the system appeared to him, saying that it had just detected that the host had received another bad review and received a critical bonus. It congratulated him on obtaining the evidence of all the crimes committed by the Yawu group. The evidence was already on the living room table, so the protagonist could go check it. Yang Chen was impressed, saying that the system was truly very powerful. With evidence of that group of idiots' criminal activities, there was no need to use Yineng to deal with that bunch of useless people. The system appeared again, saying that the passenger had also filed a complaint that triggered a lightning bonus, and now he possessed the magic driver's skill. Yang Chen was confused, asking what the hell that skill was, because it was not as if he did not know how to drive. The system explained that now he could drive any car, boat, or model after gaining the magic driver's skill. He had 100% efficiency in driving anything that could be driven. After that explanation, he became excited, saying that if that was the case, then the title of Magic Driver was well-deserved. Suddenly, his doorbell rang and he became a little annoyed that someone was disturbing people's rest in the middle of the night. He opened the door and Yineng, with a smile on her face, said that he had finally returned and apologized, saying that she hoped she had not disturbed his rest by coming there so late. Yang Chen told her not to worry and said that she was not disturbing him, asking if she needed anything. Yineng explained that it was already late and Lan had gone to buy watermelon, so she had asked her to bring one for the protagonist. Yang Chen thanked her, saying that she was very kind, and asked her to come in and sit down. But Yineng said that she would like to take a look at the night view of his hometown by the lake and asked if that was all right. Yang Chen said yes, pointing out that there was no problem at all, because he would cut the watermelon and they could enjoy the night view while eating together. Yineng thought that now was her opportunity to get a little closer and see what brand that sports car was. As soon as she approached, she was impressed, because she realized it was a car worth nearly $50 million. On top of that, the car had a custom license plate, which made it even more extravagant. Yang Chen came back and said that the watermelon was already cut and ready to serve. He took her under a canopy, asking her to sit down and enjoy the night view while eating. She thanked him for his kindness and praised his new car, saying that it really was very beautiful. Yang Chen thanked her and said that if she wanted, she could take it for a ride and have some fun. Yinong laughed and said it was better not to, because her driving skills were terrible. However, she had a question and asked why the protagonist was still driving for a transportation service since he could easily acquire shares and buy extremely expensive items. Besides, she said that if he felt a little uncomfortable with that question, he did not have to answer. Yang Chen explained that driving for a transportation service allowed him to meet all kinds of people in his life, and that was a form of personal growth and experience for him. His current mindset was not suitable for managing a company, so he needed to work on developing his mindset before considering that again. He picked up an envelope full of documents and asked if she could take a look at it. She took it and said yes, asking what it was about. But as soon as she looked, she was impressed, thinking that the protagonist had managed to gather a lot of evidence of the Yawu Corporation's illegal activities. And that was definitely not something an ordinary person could achieve. So what kind of family had he really come from? And how could he be so amazing and influential that he could obtain such documents? She began praising him, saying that he truly was impressive because he had managed to investigate his enemies so deeply in such a short time, and asked how he had managed to do it. Yang Chen simply said that he had his own methods, but he was not free to reveal them, at least not right away. In addition, he emphasized that now that he had all the evidence in his hands, he would not give the Yawu Corporation any chance of survival. Still impressed, she pointed out that she had also asked someone to investigate all the dirty business of that corporation, but they had not come anywhere close to what the protagonist had achieved, much less with the same speed. And now that they had all the evidence, she would expose them immediately and make the corporation collapse. Yang Chen pointed out that it was true and that he only wanted to make Zhang Yawu and Zhang Hengji, both father and son, feel humiliated. And if the price for that was the entire corporation collapsing, he really did not care. Yinong said that she understood and promised to take care of it as quickly as possible. In that case, she would no longer bother him and needed to go back home. The protagonist thanked her once again for all the help she was providing him. A short while later, she returned to her house and said that fortunately she had managed to find Yang Chen at his house and asked her father to take a look at what he had obtained. As soon as her father looked at it, he asked where she had gotten all of that. Yinong explained that the protagonist had given it to her and asked for her help in dealing with the entire corporation. In just one night, he had managed to obtain all the evidence of their illegal activities, and there had to be a very powerful family supporting him from behind. In addition, she had also just seen his new sports car, and that car was worth something close to $45 to $50 million. Her father was extremely surprised to discover the value of the car because that was truly extravagant. Yinong said that was exactly right. In addition, she pointed out that the protagonist had also said that as long as Zhang Yawu and Zhang Hengji were punished, he did not care if the entire corporation collapsed along with them. She asked her father if he also thought the protagonist knew that they owned a 4.9% stake in the corporation and had intentionally handed those documents to her so she could get off the boat before it sank. Her father agreed, saying that tomorrow morning, first thing, he would find someone to sell their entire stake in that corporation. And since the protagonist wanted to keep a low profile, she should also avoid deliberately getting too close to him in the future and maintain an appropriate distance. The next day, a woman called the protagonist and he asked who it was. She said that she had a job interview in the afternoon and that in the morning, she wanted to buy a nice set of professional clothes. Because of that, she wanted to know if it was possible to reserve his car for the entire day to pick her up and drop her off. Yang Chen said that it was fine and that, since they were former classmates, he would give her a 500 yuan discount. She agreed and said that there was no problem and that she would soon send him the address so he could pick her up. A short while later, he went to the address and his former classmate waved her hand. As soon as they got into the car, his classmate said that she would like to introduce her cousin, named Hui Hui, who was accompanying her while shopping. Yang Chen greeted her, saying that it was a pleasure to meet her. A short while later, they arrived at a store and the protagonist asked if they were at the right address. They said yes. He told the two of them to go in and do their shopping because he would wait outside. His former classmate asked why he wanted to wait outside in that heat and told him to come in with them, because that way she could also use any advice he might give. He ended up agreeing, but explained that he was straight, so he did not understand much about clothes. His friend said that was fine and insisted that he join them, since the opinions of straight men were basically the majority of men's opinions. As soon as they entered the store, the receptionist greeted the two of them. But as soon as the protagonist heard her voice, he thought it sounded very familiar. And when he got closer, he realized that it was Wang Jiayi. She was also surprised to see the protagonist and asked how he had managed to find that place and whether it was possible that he was there because of her. Hui Hui noticed that the atmosphere had become a little strange and asked what was going on and whether the two of them knew each other. Jiayi said that they did not know each other, but explained that it had been a long time since she had seen such a handsome man, so she had become a little distracted. She asked if the protagonist was either of the two girls' boyfriend. Hui Hui explained that he was just her cousin's college classmate and a ride-hailing driver, because she had sent her car in for maintenance, so she had rented his car for an entire day. They entered the store saying that they would look around on their own for now and that they would call her if they needed anything. Yali called Jiayi and she went over, asking how those clothes looked after she tried them on. Yali threw the clothes in her face and apologized, saying that it had not been intentional. Jiayi simply accepted it and smiled, saying that it was fine, and asked what she thought of those other clothes because they might be very good. Yali continued acting arrogantly, saying that they did not fit because she was pregnant and preferred something a little looser. However, loose clothes made her look very fat. Because of that, she wanted to see the dress she had tried on at first and try it on again. Jiayi grew irritated, thinking that the woman had already tried on almost 20 outfits and now wanted to try the first one again. The other saleswomen asked what kind of show-off behavior that was, because it was not just because she was dating a rich second-generation guy that she needed to flaunt it like that. Another said that the way her boyfriend had looked at Jiayi earlier had already made it clear that she had something in mind, and now she could see that Yali was tormenting Jiayi on purpose. Jiayi brought the dress over, saying that it was the first one she had chosen earlier. Yali told her to find a set of clothes for her boyfriend to try on as well. Jiayi asked if he needed to buy clothes too, but the woman said that whether her boyfriend would buy them or not was another matter. He wanted to try them on first, and if they fit, then they would decide whether to buy them or not. It was a girl's day out, and she would definitely take care of Jiayi's performance. She laughed, saying that it was fine, and that she would take her boyfriend to the men's section to have a look. Suddenly, she felt unwell and ran off, apologizing. Hui Hui went over to her, asking what had happened and if she was feeling sick. But Jiayi wiped her tears and said that it was fine and that it was nothing, because her throat was just a little dry. She changed the subject, asking if she had already found the clothes she liked. Hui Hui said that she had found a very good set and would like to try it on. Jiayi looked at the protagonist and thought that he could not even say a single word of concern, wondering how he could remain so indifferent because he was a deadbeat, a scumbag, and a despicable man. The protagonist's classmate tried on an outfit and asked him if the clothes looked good on her. He said that from his point of view they looked amazing, but that was just his personal opinion. His classmate agreed and said that she would buy that outfit since he liked it and asked Jiayi to help wrap it up. Jiayi said that it was fine, but commented that it looked like the two of them had more than just a classmate relationship. The protagonist's former classmate explained that it was nothing like that because she did not have male friends, so she had asked him to give an opinion to help her. Hui Hui also tried on her clothes and asked the protagonist what he thought of them. Yang Chen felt a little uncomfortable and pointed out that he had already said he had a straight man's opinion, so he did not really like that unisex style. Hui Hui said that since he was already there, he might as well buy something to support Jiayi's business. The protagonist agreed and asked to be introduced to Miss Jiayi. She called the protagonist, telling him to follow her, because the men's clothing section was on the second floor. As soon as they reached the second floor, he asked why she had felt nauseous earlier and whether she was sick. Jiayi put on a worried expression, saying that she was pregnant and that the child was the protagonist. He became even more surprised. Jiayi continued showing him the clothes and said that one would look very good on him, asking if he would like to try it on. But the protagonist hugged her from behind. Jiayi became embarrassed and asked what he was doing because there were surveillance cameras in that store and told him to calm down a little. Yang Chen pushed her against the wall and asked her to repeat what she had just said. Jiayi said that it was exactly what he had heard and that, now that he already knew, it was his responsibility to acknowledge the child. The protagonist held her hand and she was surprised, asking why he was doing that and where they were going. Yang Chen said that if it was true and that child really was his, then they would get married immediately. Jiayi began laughing, asking if he had really believed what she had just said, and pointed out that she was only joking with him, because the truth was that she had a stomach virus, and that was why she had felt like vomiting. Yang Chen breathed a sigh of relief, asking how she could joke about something that important. Jiayi kept smiling and pointed out that she had not known he had such a serious sense of humor. The protagonist explained that even if it was only a joke, he could not stand being teased about that kind of thing, so he wanted her to hurry up and show him some clothes. Jiayi continued laughing and praised him, saying that he had done very well because his reaction had been excellent. Because of that, if one day she really became pregnant with his child in the future, she would definitely look for him, now that she knew he was an extremely responsible person. Besides, he had made her feel much better, since that couple had tried on more than 20 outfits, and still could not make up their minds. Yang Chen asked who those two were and why they were bothering her. Jiayi explained that the woman was her colleague, and she had used some methods to marry that rich guy, but that rich guy was indecisive and kept bothering her, even though her colleague was already pregnant. So when her colleague asked her to accompany that guy, it made her feel sick. The protagonist became irritated, asking if that girl was crazy, and said that he would teach her a lesson later. Jiayi was surprised and asked why he would do that and if he felt sorry for her because she was being bullied. Yali walked over to the two of them and asked her what was wrong with her, because they still had not settled the pending matters, yet she was serving other people. because she had already said she would take care of her business, and even so, she was treating customers badly. The protagonist stepped into the middle of the argument and told her that if she could not afford the clothes there, then she did not need to waste the saleswoman's time. Since she was trying on clothes without buying anything, she could find someone else to help her. Besides, he did not want anyone disturbing him while he was shopping. Yali's boyfriend appeared and argued with the protagonist, asking who he was. Because he was wearing cheap clothes, so how did he dare enter a store like that? Yang Chen told the guy that he had already tried on more than 20 outfits and still had not bought anything. So how did he still have the nerve to show his face? Yang Chen asked Jiayi to choose the most expensive outfit in the store for him, because he was not leaving, and no one else could order her around. The other two saleswomen became curious, asking what was going on there because it looked like they were arguing. Jiayi brought him a piece of clothing. The protagonist asked if that was the most expensive one. She said it was expensive enough and asked him to stop messing around. But the protagonist lost his patience and asked who the manager of that store was. Another woman appeared and greeted him, saying that she was the store manager and asked how she could help. Yang Chen said that he wanted to buy the most expensive men's clothes in that store, and the saleswoman, Jiayi, had to accompany him throughout the entire fitting process. He would not leave that store until he was done, and no one else could ask for her help. He asked if the manager agreed to that. The manager said yes, because it was a pleasure and an honor to serve him. She went over to Jiayi and said that from that moment on, she would be exclusively responsible for helping that handsome gentleman, so she did not need to worry about anything else. Yali shouted, asking what the point of that was because they had arrived first, so how could she go help someone else? Her boyfriend said that they were intentionally teaming up against the two of them to create trouble. The protagonist asked what trouble he was creating because they had tried on more than 20 pieces of clothing and had not bought a single one, which clearly showed that they could not afford them. And if they could not afford them, then why did they need to waste time when there were other customers inside that store? The girl's boyfriend said that the protagonist was just a poor dog playing tricks, because the clothes were worth tens of thousands. So how could he not afford them? He simply had not found anything suitable for himself. Yali asked Jiayi to pack up all the clothes she had tried on earlier, because if she did not buy something today, people would really think she could not afford those clothes. Her boyfriend became worried because the price of 20 outfits would be approximately 160,000, because he had only been joking and that idiotic woman had taken everything seriously. He asked his wife if she did not already have a lot of things at home. So why did she want to buy so much? Yali became irritated, asking what the problem was and whether he did not want to buy things for her because she was pregnant and he did not care about her. Once the child was born, she would have no status anymore. The boyfriend became worried and pointed out that he had never said he would not buy them for her and asked them to pack up all the clothes they had tried on so far. The protagonist intervened again, asking if they were trying to steal his saleswoman, but the boyfriend kept acting arrogantly, asking who cared if they were stealing her, because the protagonist could not pay for so many things. Yang Chen told Jiayi to choose the most expensive clothes, shoes, bags, and jewelry in that store and create an outfit for her, because he would pay for everything. Jiayi fell in love with him again, saying that he was very domineering, smart, and adorable at the same time. Meanwhile, on the first floor, Hui Hui and her cousin were looking around, asking why all the salespeople had gone upstairs and what was happening there. They said they needed to go upstairs to see what was going on. Yang Chen was still arguing, saying that he was willing to buy things for that saleswoman. His former classmate approached and asked him what he was doing because the things inside that place were very expensive, and he did not need to buy things to give to a stranger he had just met. Hui Hui told her cousin to stop being stupid, asking if she really believed that the two of them did not know each other. The boyfriend kept insisting that the protagonist was pretending and told him to stop, saying that a ride-hailing driver could not afford bags as expensive as that one. He asked Jiayi to get the 328,000 bag they had seen last time because he would buy it now. Jiayi brought the bag to Yali and said that she was very lucky because her boyfriend was truly willing to spend a lot of money on her. Yali said that was obvious because money had never been a problem for her boyfriend. Besides, he had never been stingy either. She looked at the protagonist and called him handsome, asking if he could afford that 328,000 bag. Yang Chen laughed, saying that a ride-hailing driver could not afford a 328,000 bag. And apparently the ones who really had money there were those two, so Jiayi could go get everything they had asked for earlier. The boyfriend became irritated, asking if the protagonist had been trying to provoke him from the beginning, so he would buy all those things. Yang Chen asked how that guy could slander him like that. If he did not want to buy them because everything was too expensive, he just had to say so and not make excuses. Yali went over to her boyfriend, asking if he thought it was too expensive, and if he was avoiding spending money on her. Jo-jun explained that the issue was not whether it was expensive or not, but that it was clearly a trap they had created, and apparently she had not realized it. Jiayi said that Jo-jun always said he had money and should treat his wife better. Jo-jun shouted at her not to try to sow discord there, and asked if she believed he really would not hit her just because she was a woman. The protagonist grabbed his hand and began lifting him by the throat, asking what kind of man he was to bully and try to hit a woman. Because if Jo Jun really wanted to fight, then he would accompany him. Jo Jun became frightened and told the protagonist to let him go, or he would make sure he could no longer survive in that city. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. Thank you.